Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Umineko Chapter 5. Natsuhi is being bullied like crazy by Burn Castell, Erika, and Lambda Delta, and it's not ending. Heck, it's taken way longer than I thought it was. She lost her trial, and then they're just like, let's bully her. And let's bully her some more. And that's how it's going. Last thing they did was, I believe they implied that she's sleeping with her father-in-law, which is a little bit rude. Let's see if it goes any further. How far are they going to take this to make it Natsuhi surrender and admit that her father-in-law was already dead? I think their goal is to make her admit that he was already dead without admitting he's dead. Without them proving that he's dead. Although any sane person would probably have just said he's dead, as based on their own assumptions. How could such proof even exist? How low are you willing to sink to mock me? Evidently pretty far. Natsuhi tried to attack Erika, but Eva pinned her arms behind her back so she couldn't do anything. How unsightly. Bullying Natsuhi is like the pastime of about 80% of the characters in this series. In order to take revenge against the Ushiromiya family, you first schemed to take control of everything the family owned? For that reason, you used your body as a weapon and ensnared Kinzo-san. Okay. I never did anything of the sort. Okay. I've never given my body to anyone except my husband? Okay. I'm just sitting there holding that sentence. I understand why you want to deny it. But testimony from several witnesses has already made it clear you had repeated secret meetings with Kinzo-san. After all, last night you went to say goodnight to Kinzo-san. With just the two of you, alone in his study, right? Beyond that, I've collected multiple bits of testimony regarding clear traces of sexual intercourse. Boom! There we go! I was waiting for that! Alright. So, the previous statements are all, incorrect. The previous statements that she says are all incorrect are all things based on her conjecture that you could maybe say she horrendously misinterpreted them. And now she is saying she's collected physical evidence indicating clear traces of sexual intercourse. Interesting. Okay. So she's coming to the conclusion that she's had sex with Kinzo. Alright, so a detective can in fact make up testimony. She's collected. Yeah. Or is that a conclusion, not evidence? Maybe. Okay. Oh, maybe we'll wait on it. Who said something so ridiculous? Koda? Shannon? Eva-san? You must be ahead something so ridiculous. Who was it? Who? I received testimony from those involved. This is pretty fatal. No room for doubt now. Hey, Natsuhi. Looks like you don't have a scrap of honor left now. I'll give you one final chance before I build you the worst of all possible fragments. Go ahead and say Kinzo wasn't there, okay?
そうよね。Natsuhi,
You sure are
あんた
stubborn,
強情だ
Natsuhi.
わ。もう後ろ宮家なんてどうせボロボロじゃ
Ah, they're
ない。
fine. The Shiromia family's already been torn to ribbons,
そ
right?
んなにも金蔵がいることにして遺産問題をうやむやにしたいの？
Are you really desperate to confuse the inheritance problem by pretending Kinzo exists? Yeah, but we haven't had testimony. We haven't had new testimony external to the statements stated here. That says that she ostensibly slept with Kinzo, which means you can fabricate evidence. That's I think what I was saying, right? So she says, beyond all the stuff you've said here, I've collected extra testimony regarding traces of sexual intercourse. So other people are saying she slept with it, but nobody's said that. So you can fabricate evidence. You can fabricate any testimony to say whatever you want. You can just say you have testimony. Erika can't fabricate evidence. She literally just said she has testimony saying that they slept together that we haven't seen. How do you know no one said it? Because it wasn't said on screen. And that's the kind of game this is. Also, she didn't say it in red, and it was to quote Lambda Delta here, she says, I received testimony from those involved. Wow, this is pretty fatal. No room for doubt now. But she didn't say any of that in red, which means it doesn't have to be true. Ava can have said it? Yeah, sure, Ava could have said it. But she didn't, but we don't know that she said it. And I mean, if it was actually acknowledged as truth, then it would would it not violate any of the rules as it was said to we didn't find it out? It's testimony, but it's testimony that no one gave in court. Yeah, in court, people have to actually give their testimony. It's not like we've seen 100% of Ava's dialogues. Maybe not. Like, we haven't seen all of her dialogue, but typically based on our, like, hardcore rules, we had to have said that. We had to have said that somewhere in the center. But most interestingly, it wasn't reinforced in red, but she said there's no room for doubt here. Which is curious because Lambda Delta would be someone who said that she's received testimony from those involved that X has happened in red or something like that if it was actually true. Which we know it isn't, but it's funny that she's not saying it in red, but saying it's confirmed. Alright. You're stubborn. Are you really desperate to confuse the inheritance problem by pretending Kinzo exists? This is my final challenge. In protecting the honor of the Ashiromiya family, which father entrusted me with. My husband's business will definitely succeed. Until we can use that to repay our debts, I cannot hand over the inheritance to the Ashiromiya family. I will protect father and my husband's honor. The narrator said at this point we don't need red because Natsuhi's already been declared guilty. The NPCs don't need that to believe it. We, the reader, do, though. And yes, we already know the narrator said that no one will listen to Natsuhi regardless of what she says. Which is why this scene seems somewhat pointless and gratuitous, as they could say whatever they want to say, and it would automatically become truth because there's no opposing testimony and no one is capable of understanding or reasoning with anybody else. So anything that any conjecture they make about them is guilty. It's like, okay. It doesn't really make too much sense though, because they can basically say anything they want and you kind of just it feels like you're just like wasting your time going through this list of things that's bad about Natsuhi and you're like, okay, can we move on with the next step of the story? Delano doesn't give a fuck anymore because Beato already bit the dust. Yeah, Delano's not going to show up because the trial's over. It's more like it's kind of just strange and pointless for them to make us read through this whole scene when we're like just waiting for the next section of story to happen. It's been like an hour or something in this. We're like an hour plus deep into this. I'm just like, okay, I get it. The main point of the episode is how harmful absolute truth is. But the point is they aren't using absolute truths to determine any of this. They're just using conjecture, making their... Like, she's making shit up on the spot and everyone's automatically agreeing with it, making it really silly. So, sure, yeah, if you can say, like, whatever you say is truth whenever you say it, like, sure, yeah, okay. If every word I say, everyone assumes is completely true and has to follow through on, sure. That's like the only thing it's demonstrating, but that's kind of silly, because it's like, okay. Well, if I had the power to make everyone believe everything I said was true and carry out on it, I mean, yeah, I could see that causing damage. So she's like, well, you see, you're like sleeping with Kinzo, and she's like, that doesn't make any sense. And she's like, well, you see, you aren't not sleeping with. It's like, do you have any proof you aren't? She's like, no. She's like, therefore you are, and everyone's like, that seems reasonable. It's like, you could say, it's like, it's pretty straightforward. It's like, okay, well, you've been accused guilty of murder. Therefore, you are literally Hitler. Prove you're not Hitler. And you're like, I'm living in 2022. That would be basically impossible, assuming I was born in 1939. It's like, well, by some means you must have managed it. Anyway, we're gonna execute you for killing millions of people. And you're like, okay. Sure. Like, whatever. It has to be believable. Not sure it has to. Does it have to be believable, though? Because they said they don't need any evidence to believe anything they say, and that no matter what she says, she won't be believed. So if and due to the detective power, everyone automatically believes everything she says. You're forgetting how good the detective power is, right? We were talking about this in the last section. The detective power allowed her to concretely determine that there is no Kinzo anywhere on this multi-square kilometer island while she was physically busy doing other stuff. In less than an hour, she was able to search the entire island in like a grid, like somehow search every square inch of the island for Kinzo and determine that he's not there, which is physically impossible in real life and completely unbelievable. But she was able to do that just by saying, I searched. So it doesn't matter how long it takes. She's able to make impossible claims using her detective powers, and people will believe them automatically, and they can be verified as true. So you could say, yeah, because this person's a murderer, therefore they're like Hitler because they've killed people and they'll kill more people. Right? Easy. Like, you could say that, and it's like, well, I'm the detective, I'm saying that, it's possible. And because it's the detective saying it, it has to be possible. And it doesn't matter if it's true or not, because that's the power of the magical detective, is that people automatically believe it because the person is already guilty. You can make any claim you want about them, whether it's true or not, which is exactly what's happening here, which is why it's very silly. Because it's like, you've proven this person is guilty of these things, and then due to detective powers, people will believe absolutely anything, which is like, okay. You're supposed to think this is a bad point because the whole episode is based on showing you how you should be thinking based on rules, but also how you shouldn't think based on the rules. I mean, it's telling me that, like, why am I wasting time? I should just use the magic of the rules to answer things, which is why I was going, which is where I was going with, like, Battler. I'm like, why don't just have Beatrice say the thing, and it's like, Beatrice is like, I don't feel like it, and lets him die. Like, okay. Like, you should use the rules, you should work with the rules to get your favor immediately, and they're just like, nah. They've done that multiple times where it's like, oh, the rules clearly state this would work, and then it's like, don't feel like it. Which makes it seem very pointless a lot of the time to go with, to actually even bother thinking about things. Because if it's like, okay, well, the rules say this works, and then you just get like, nah, I don't feel like making it work, it's like, well, what am I bothering to think about things? Anyway, we're just waiting for Battler to show up again and do some work. Let's continue. I'll protect father, my husband's honor. It's my mission. All right.
死者の名誉を守ろうとは 見上げた根性だわ。
Wanting to protect the honor of the dead is an admirable trait,
死者じゃないわ。
but he's not one of the dead.
夏日の頭の中の都合のいい妄想の名誉よ。
We're talking about the honor of a convenient delusion inside Natsuhi's head.
本当の金蔵は
The
そ
real
の名誉を守れなんて
Never once
一度たりとも夏日に命じたことなんてないんだから。
ordered Natsuhi to protect that honor. Yeah, she's doing it anyway. She's doing it anyway, who cares? As Natsuhi screamed, she fell down on her hands and knees. She no longer had any way to reject the faith truth that Berncastel and Erika had weaved.
ゲームマスターラムダデルタの名において
By my name is Game Master
本
Lambda
ゲーム
Delta.
の勝利者がベルンカステル教であることを認めるわ。
I acknowledge Lady Berncastel is victor of the game.
意義ある者は名乗りを上げよ。
If anyone has objections, state your name now. Alright? Of course, there were none. All who might have objected had been erased.
意義ある者なし。
No
ベルン
objections?
あんたの勝ちよ。見事な勝ちっぷりだったわ。
Burn, it's your victory, and a wonderful victory it
真相
is.
のかけらをあなたが紡ぎなさい。
Now you must weave up the fragment of the truth.
ええ、
Sure.
それでは私が真相を紡ぐわ。
I'll go weave up the
こ
truth.
れがこの悲しく間抜けな物語の真相よ。
This is the truth of this sad, pathetic tale.
本当は泣き笑いしながら罪を認めた夏日に自ら語ってほしかったんだけどね。
Though I did want Natsuhi to acknowledge her crime while half laughing, half crying. Yeah, any objections? Killed everyone who would object. Yep, seems
そ
about
れ
right.
がお約束なんでしょ。
After all, that's standard in the genre, right? I mean, that's what happens in this game now, I guess. Because the rules are in flux perpetually. Previously, when people didn't have an answer, they just moved on to the next point, and then they asked later, and then if they couldn't agree, they just moved on to the next game. But now we're killing people because, I don't know, reasons. It's kind of inconsistent the way the game's rules work. They're basically redefined by, like, someone. They're redefined by people all the time. That's how the detective mystery genre works. No, I mean, like, the meta game, where Battler dies, doesn't really make sense. After being forced into a marriage she hadn't wanted, Natsuhi developed a grudge against the Ashiramiya family and was filled with a desire for revenge. Neither was like the giant court trial thing. That was kind of like created whole cloth for the purpose of randomly killing Battler, and it doesn't really follow the game's rules that were established in the prior 4 arcs, which is kind of inconsistent, but whatever. Ryukishi gonna redefine rules as he feels like. After being forced into a marriage she hadn't wanted, Natsuhi developed a grudge against the family and was filled with desire for revenge. We're just reading this again, okay? From the trial synopsis, page 3. You're supposed to now agree with us because they're horrible and they legit don't care about the rules? Yeah, okay. Natsuhi also attempting to take revenge for the financial submission her parents' family had been forced into by the Ashiramiyas, schemed to capture the family's wealth. Knowing the wealth of the family was in practical terms under Kinzo's personal control, she initiated sexual relations to curry favor with him. I managed to ensnare him from the trial synopsis, page 7. To curry favor with Kinzo, she repeatedly imitated Beatrice, the witch of Kinzo's delusions, and engaged in sexual acts. Kinzo saw his long-lost mistress in Natsuhi and was easily ensnared. Furthermore, by chance, she was sometimes witnessed in this guise by the servants, and this became part of the foundation for the legend of the witch. From the trial synopsis, page 8. However, late at night on October 4th, Ushiramiya Battler discovered the hidden gold. The relatives were in an uproar and decided Battler should succeed the headship, so Natsuhi planned the crime. She murdered the children in the so-called cousin room and tried to frame Battler for the crime. Furthermore, Genji was murdered for opposing this scheme. Later on, Hideyoshi was also murdered. From this point on, she displayed the strong intent to indiscriminately murder all those involved. Trial synopsis, page 27. The following outlines the details of the crime. Midnight October 4th, Natsuhi decides to commit the crime. She asked Genji to assist her, but was refused, so she murdered him. Then she murdered her husband Kraus in his own room. Afterwards, she went to the so-called cousin room on the second floor of the guest house. Sorry, didn't they red text that she was phone called by someone else and then Kraus was murdered? That's kind of weird, but inconsistent, but alright. The part where she kills Kraus is inconsistent, sorry. I can't scroll back because the scroll back puts it on the very bottom line there. That's a little bit strange since we didn't actually prove that she killed Kraus, and we proved that she was called via red text, but alright. The rest of them, I think, you could kind of make an assumption of guilt quite easily, but alright. Afterwards, she went to the so-called cousin room on the second floor of the guest house, waited for Rosa to join the rest. Killed George, Jessica, Maria, and Rosa. Alright. Damaged the necks of those corpses. Sure. Afterwards, because there were people in the lounge on the first floor, she waited in an empty room on the second floor. She hid in the empty room until the people in the lounge dispersed and went to bed. The people in the lounge dispersed after 3. Natsuhi left the room and escaped from the guest house. She returned to her personal room where she met up with Kinzo, who was hiding there. She stayed there until morning. Kinzo left the room early next morning, concealed himself somewhere near the guest house. Didn't Kinzo never leave the room? Bit confused on that statement. He's supposed to be always in her room, but alright. Okay. Because they said Kinzo never, for the duration of the entire weekend, Kinzo never left the room he was in. Via red text, but alright. Some of these are like slightly inconsistent. Afterwards, Kinzo saw his chance, carried off the corpses of the 6 victims, one by one hiding them. Sure. Unfortunately, these hidden corpses have not been found from the trial synopsis. Natsuhi, who failed in her scheme to cast suspicion on Battler, changed her plan to include the murder of all present. Battler wasn't very suspicious, but alright. Predicting one of those present would eventually want to take a rest in a private room, she concealed herself inside a closet. Yeah, sure, this one's kind of sort of believable. After 1, she murdered Hideyoshi after he entered the room. For the trial synopsis, page 63. 1. By the time the others became aware of the incident, to the time they carried Hideyoshi's corpse out, Natsuhi once again concealed herself in the closet. Furthermore, as proof of this, a button from Natsuhi's clothes was found in the closet. Afterwards, she left the closet and tried to return to her room. However, Furuto Erika found and questioned her first, and she confessed to her crime. Another GSC official notice: due to a result of the illusion trial, something or other, October 5th, 1986, we announced the following has been determined. Ushirami Natsuhi did admit to her crime. 13 months following the announcement, related docs may be perused at General Great Court Legal Offices, Document Management Center, First Subsection. Great Court Deputy Chief, Head Inquisitor of Heresy, Delanore Knox. Okay. Okay, let's all assume I did it, right? That's what you want me to say, right? Sure. As though she gave up and decided it'd be useless to try and talk her way out of this any longer, Natsuhi screamed that out. It was a sad incident, I wanted to believe. Despite the pitiable circumstances that led her to her marriage into the family, Natsuhi might have been able to grasp a sliver of happiness together with Uncle Kraus and Jessica. However, by Aunt Natsuhi's own doing, Uncle Kraus and even her beloved daughter Jessica were heartlessly killed. It's even harder to believe grandfather had been an accomplice and hid the corpses. However, judging by the clear testimony given by several people who knew him, his mental state for the last few years has been far from what anyone would consider normal. Perhaps possessed by mad devotion to the mistress he'd lost long ago, grandfather might truly believe that Natsuhi was a reincarnation of Beatrice. Where is he now? Like Erika theorized, did he really believe that he could revive Beatrice by carrying out the murders following the epitaph? Coming to Natsuhi's cajolery? Right now, is he holding some kind of disturbing ceremony with the bodies he carried away? Are you satisfied now? This is what you wanted me to say, right? Sure. Aunt Natsuhi sobbed as she spoke.
これが
This is your revenge, right?
19年前の男
He was a man from 19 years ago? This man from 19 years ago Aunt Natsuhi kept mentioning was supposedly someone who caught her in some sort of trap. However, she only mentioned this man from 19 years ago existed, and she most certainly hadn't tried to explain what happened 19 years ago.
きっとこの中にあの男の手先が混じっているはずです。
I'm sure the man's underling is one among
あ
us
の
here.
男はあなたたちの誰かを通じて
I'm sure that
今のこの私を嘲
right
笑
now
って
that
いるで
man's
しょう。
Is she done? Alright. I'm sure that right now this man's ridiculing me through one of you.
なら伝えなさい。
And tell
こ
me,
れで
are you happy now?
19年間あなたを苛んだ痛みと苦しみは少しは言えましたか？
Has a bit of that pain and suffering you endured for 19 years gone away?
ようやく
I finally understand.
私をここまで追い詰めたのはそれを認めさせたかったからですね。
The reason you corner me so far is because you want me to acknowledge that, right?
夏日さん、
Natsuhi-san.
私たち以外に部外者は一切存在しません。
Other than us, there's no one here.
意もしない人物がさも存在するように振る舞うなんて往生
Please
際
stop
の悪い
this
芝居はやめてくださ
insanely
い。
desperate charade and quit pretending someone who doesn't exist actually does. Didn't they acknowledge that she got the call? They even acknowledged in red text that she was called, but they never investigated the call, which is curious. But hey, alright. It works, sure. I don't know why Battler never brought up the call when they red texted the call being referenced. But it's okay, Battler is designed to be incompetent, and we're supposed to be waiting for Battler to make his return. Which might happen during the tea party? We'll see. Stop the charade, quit pretending someone who doesn't exist actually does. Erika laughed mockingly, but as Aunt Natsuhi looked at us, as she looked at something behind us, she hung her head and shook, then confessed to her sin.
私は
I committed murder.
やっと直接的な言葉
You
で罪を
finally
認
acknowledge
め
your
ま
crime
したね。
directly?
いいえ、昨日
No.
今日の事件のことではありませ
It's
ん。
not about what happened today and
19
yesterday.
年前の殺人について
I'll confess to a murder that
告白します。
occurred 19 years ago. The adults whispered together, wondering what this is about, because they never heard about a murder 19 years ago. 19 years ago.
今から19年前私は
I committed a
許
sin.
せなかったのです。
I couldn't forgive it. We've had this story told to us before. We're having it reiterated to us again in this same arc that we read about it for the first time, because it's being read to Erika.
その
That baby.
赤ん坊？今さら何の
A
話です
baby?
か？
What are you talking about now?
19年前の
On
あの
that day 19 years ago, Father
私は
entrusted me with a
い
baby.
つまでも後継ぎを見守ることのできない私にならば養子を迎えよと
Since I
お父
couldn't bear a
様がおっしゃ
successor
る
on my own, Father told me to adopt a
施設か
child.
ら連れてきたという一人の赤ん坊を
Father told me to
私に
adopt a
抱
child,
か
and he
せた
told
の
me
で
to hold a baby that had been brought here from an orphanage.
それが私にどれほど女としての屈辱を与えたか
Do you have any idea how
So
humiliating that was to me as a woman? With a mix of conflicting emotions, anger, sadness, regret, and possibly defiance, Natsuhi confessed her humiliation as a woman when she was no longer expected to bear a child, and also indescribably unpleasant feeling of being made to hold an unfamiliar baby. It caused her sadness and rage, and before many nights passed, it ate a hole in her heart.
そして私
And then
は
I sold my soul to demons. It happened when I went on a walk through the rose garden to the harbor along with the servant holding the baby.
私は一人に
I
な
wanted to
赤
be
ん坊を
alone,
連れた
but
そ
they
の
were
使用人の
the
女
servant holding the baby
一
faithfully
に私
followed
の
me
後に
everywhere.
ついて回りました。一人にしてくれとさえ言い出せずだから赤ん坊の泣き声から逃れられず
I was unable to even tell her to stop following me, and therefore unable to escape from the child's
その日よ
crying
り19
that day
私を苛む長き頭痛の日々の始まりに
marked the beginning of 19 long headache-filled years.
そして咲くよ
When we
り
faced the
崖を
cliff
望む
across from the fence,
遥か眼下の岩浜
if
に
by taking that baby
この赤ん坊を放り捨てることで
and throwing it down onto the rocky beach far below,
全 全てな
I
か
could
った
undo
こ
it
と
all.
にできる。そんな悪魔の誘惑を私は
I really did listen to that demon's temptation.
そしてそれが本当にできたらどれほど素晴らしいかと。
For the smallest of moments, I thought of how wonderful it would be if I could really do
その
that.
誘惑に
I lent an ear to that temptation
その時
at that time.
赤ん坊を抱いた使用人が大きな石を踏んで
The servant holding the baby stepped on a large rock, twisted her ankle, and
そ
staggered.
して粗末な柵に寄りかかり、その時柵が大きくきしんだ気が
She
した。
leaned against the rough fence, and at that time I thought I heard the fence creak
私
loudly.
は危ないと言いながら肩を掴もうとしました。
I told her to look out and tried to grab her shoulder.
いえ、
No,
そんな曖昧な言い
I
方
shouldn't
は
be
しま
so
せん。
vague.
懺悔します。
I'll
告
repent.
白します。
I'll confess.
私はあの時
At
確か
that moment,
に危ないと言いながら
I'm sure that as I told her to look
そ
out
の使用人
with
の
both
肩
hands,
両手で
I reached for that shoulder, servant's shoulder, and with the thud,
強く
I
押し飛ば
pushed
した
her
ので
away hard.
す。粗末な柵は根元か
The
ら
rough
折れ、
fence snapped from the base,
使用人と
and the servant
その手に抱かれた
Along with the
赤ん坊
baby in her
か
arms.
岩浜へ
fell toward the rocky beach
転
below.
落していきました。その瞬間
Even
の
though
ことは鮮明に覚
I
えている。
remember that moment vividly.
なのに
For some reason, I
なぜ
recall
か
a
曖昧
vague
でとても不思議な気持
and
ちだ
very
ったの
strange
で
feeling,
覚えています。転落したというより
almost as though instead of
まるで
falling,
何もない宙に二人が音もなく飲み込まれて消えた
the
よ
two
うに
of
さえ
them were
感じたの
silent.
です。
The two of them were silently swallowed up into
だ
empty
から
space.
私は二人が岩浜に落下した音さえ聞いています。
I didn't even hear the sound of them crashing to the rocky beach.
きっと聞いている
I'm
のです。
sure I heard it,
でも消えたと思い込みたかったから。
but because I wanted to think they
その
disappeared,
聞いた音をきっ
I
と
must have erased the
記憶
sound
から
from my
消し
memory.
去ってしまったのです。
それから
And then,
私は一瞬これが夢だと信じました。
for an instant, I thought it was
あ
a
の
dream.
高さですからちょっと身を乗り出したくらいでは眼下の二人は見えません。
It was high enough I couldn't see the two of them just below me by just
Look at
leaning over.
二人が落ちたことさえほんの数秒前のことさえ現実のことなのかわからなくて、
I didn't actually know whether their fall was a few seconds before that had actually happened or not.
きっと私はここから赤ん坊
Must
が
have
落ちればいいのにと願いすぎて
I must have been wishing so strongly the child would fall.
白チュームを見てしまったに違
I had a
いない。
daydream. What, just daydream?
そう自らに思い込ませ足早にバラ庭園に戻り
Trying to make myself believe this, I hurried back to the
赤
rose
ん
garden.
坊は使用人に任せ私は一人ここで休んでいたことにしま
Then
し
I
た。
decided to let the servant take care of the baby, choosing to take a rest alone in the garden. And then
お父様に赤ん坊はどうしたのかと問われ
father asked what had happened to the baby.
任せた使用人の姿が
An
見えな
uproar
い。
began over the disappearance of the servant. Hey, look, maybe they're not dead. Maybe Gop took them, okay? You never know. Gop could have caught them. They would have landed comfortably in Kuadorin, and that's where they're just hanging out, okay?
騒ぎになって
For 19 years, they've been plotting their revenge. Yeah, the servant who'd been in charge of that. Maybe Beatrice, maybe she flew away because it was secretly Beatrice. Eventually, the broken fence was discovered, and two corpses found at the bottom of the cliff. The child had apparently been here for reasons that couldn't become known, so its existence was hushed up. The official story was that the servant had had an accident on her own and died. It's possible, correct. It's possible. In fact, you're obligated not to believe this because this is Natsuhi and she's been pronounced guilty already. That's right.
私は
I stole away two innocent
Ichiro.
lives in one go. A
罪
double
なき
kill.
命を気の毒な使用人については
And Natsuhi's delivery
Ichiro
can't be
に
any
睨みました
slower. She whispers and delivers this like she's intentionally making me wait for every single word, which is maybe not completely inappropriate, but it makes it kind of annoying to read. Oh my goodness. As for the poor servant, her family was graciously
真
compensated.
相を知らない老いた夫は 不幸な事故を嘆きつつもそれに納得してくれました。
Her husband, who didn't know the truth, accepted this even though he grieved over the unfortunate
そして
accident.
ほんの数年前老衰で亡くなり
A few years ago,
私は墓
he
前
died
で
of old age, and I
真相を
confessed the
告白
truth
し
over his grave,
謝罪
apologizing.
しました。しかし私
But
は
until this day,
あの赤ん坊に謝罪したことはありません。
till this day, I never apologized to that baby.
そう、
Yes.
それが
That's what you're
あな
after,
たの
isn't
目
it?
的でしょう。だから私は今ここで罪を告白します。
Right here, right now. I'll confess to my
後
crime.
宮夏日は
I assure me a Natsuhi
19年前にあなたを
did 19 years ago.
崖から突き落として
Push you off a cliff.
殺そうとしました。
Tried to kill you. Alright.
でも
But
あなたは死んでいなか
you
った
didn't
の
die,
です。
did
こ
you?
うして生きて
You're still alive.
それでも
You still call me
私を
mother.
母さんと呼びこの島へ帰ってきて
Came to this island.
こうして復讐をされたのですね。
And you took your revenge on me, didn't you?
あなたはこの19年
For these 19
母と
years.
呼ぶはずだった私に突き落とされたことを知って
You knew the one you should have called your mother pushed you off
ど
a
れ
cliff.
ほどの憎悪の人生を送っ
You
たの
must
で
have
しょう。
lived a hate-filled life.
そしてあなたは私があなたを突き落としてから得た
And now you've taken everything I've gained since pushing you off the cliff.
18年間の人生をこうして
18 years of my life smashed to pieces.
もう私には愛した夫も
I no
娘
longer
もい
have
ません。
my beloved husband and daughter.
そして私には名誉もなく
I've lost my honor. How's the baby supposed to remember this? Fuck if I know. That's how the plot's going. I've lost my honor. I'm called a murderer.
いいえ
I guess I am a murderer, aren't I?
本当に人殺しですものね。
Conclusion: Natsuhi admits to Natsuhi admits to her murder of her son and husband. Direct quote: "I'll admit it. I really am a murderer, aren't I?" End quote. She said those words verbatim. They are red truth. Natsuhi is a murderer. That's also red truth. So she's gone. Easy.
そうです。
We don't need red truth though.
あなたの目論見通り
It all went according to your plans.
私は今や人殺しとみなされています。
I'm now regarded as a
どうです
killer.
か
How's that?
復
Is
讐
this
には
enough?
これで十分で
Is
す。
this enough for your revenge?
夫と娘を殺され
My daughter and husband have been killed.
人殺しの汚名
I've
を
been
着せ
made
ら
to
れ
look like a murderer and an
不
adulteress.
定の
even.
汚名までこうして生き恥をかかされる私を見て
After seeing me living in disgrace
Oh,
like
that
this, are you
was
satisfied?
さぞや満足でしょうね。
But you're quite satisfied
家族
because my family,
名誉も
my honor,
すべて奪い去ったのですか。
everything has been stolen from me. All right. Okay. I can move on. Next line. Oh boy. These line deliveries are pretty slow.
この後に及んでま
After
だ
this,
濡れ衣だと言い張るん
you
ですか。
still claim your frame?
まったくあなたは本当に往生際の悪い。
Seriously, you just don't know when to give up?
聞こえていますか。19年前の呪われた赤ん坊。
Can you hear me, cursed child from
こ
19
れで
years ago?
満足ですか。
Are you satisfied now?
あなたは私から全てを奪いました。
You've stolen everything from me now?
まだ何か足りないというのですか。
What else do you want? Please?
私を
Please
許して
give me.
ダメだな。
Useless, isn't it?
バトラさん、
Battler
何
son.
か言いました？
Say something?
全然ダメだぜ。
It's all useless.
バトラ
Battler?
君
ああ、ダメだな。
Useless, isn't it?
全然ダメ
It's
だ
all
ぜ。
useless. There we go. Credits. Hey, Trisha got credits here for AFK. She's got to have the easiest role. Sit in a chair like a zombie. Ushirima Kinzo died before game start time. Not proven. Ushirima Kroos died on the first Twilight. Also not proven. Natsuhi alive at time of suspension. Jessica dead. Ava alive. Guess we're going with everyone's status. Hideyoshi dead. George dead. First Twilight. Rudolph alive. Kyrie alive. Rosa dead on the first Twilight. Honestly, this is probably one of the best outcomes we've had for a game so far. Maria died on the first Twilight. Nanjo Teramasa alive. Genji dead. Shannon alive. Canon alive. Goda Toshiro alive. Kumasawa Chio alive. Virgilia. Oh, okay, we're going with servants. Alright. As far as games go, this is probably the best game we've had so far in terms of what the outcome is if this is the real truth. It's not great the copper wasn't caught. What do you mean it's not great the copper was... You know most games everyone dies, right? Like every single person except for Ava. That's been our best game. Ava was the lone survivor, was our best game in the first four games. Like everyone dies in all of them. The night's still young. True. Did we know everyone's dead? Currently the game's suspended and no one died and there's no killer and the gold's been found. What makes you think there's going to be anyone else dying in this arc? This might in fact be the perfect run where only the first and second Twilight comes. That might be the most progress we've made. I mean, we'll have to wait and see because the tea party is typically part of the story. And they finish the arc here. Let's pretend nothing else happened after the game is suspended. Yeah, who knows? The police never came. Why? They all died? Who knows? Guess we'll find out. We haven't gotten to that part yet because the game's suspended. It'll probably resume and we might see a post thing. Alright, the answer. Cool. Golden Witch has a gift for you. Alright, tea party time. Episode 5. Let's see. Oh, I probably should have read the title of the episode 5 tea party. Oh well.
Erika, Doranor.
Erika, Delanar?
はい、我が主。
Yes, Master.
お呼びですか？
You called?
あなたたちは引き続きこのかけらにとどまり、
I want you two to stay in this
残る
fragment.
第1から第4のゲームすべてを解明しなさい。
Explain everything in the remaining first through fourth games.
もはや魔女幻想を主張する哀れなかりそめ魔女は存在しない。
The pitiful transient witch who supports the illusion of the witch no longer exists
む
herself.
き出しの真実を徹底的に暴いてやりなさい。
Expose the naked truth thoroughly.
お任せを、
Leave
我
it
が
to me,
主。
Master.
このフルドエリカに解けぬ謎はありません。
No riddle I, Rudo Erika cannot solve.
当然よ。
Of course.
それでこそ私の駒、私の分身だわ。
That's why you're my piece, my double. Alright. Vern Castell wore a massive and horrible smile which Erika shared. They have a very different smile, I disagree. Beatrice's illusion of the witch would disappear, and the results in previous games would be painted over. It had been crushed in every way possible, and only the naked truth remained. Wasn't Natsuhi killed in multiple games right at the start? That's going to be an interesting one. How on earth did Natsuhi survive when she was clearly defined as dead in the second game in the first Twilight? And then people kept dying. That's going to be strange. Pretty sure she was also murdered in the third game. Oh, whatever. Such a weak truth was no better than fish on the chopping board for Erika. Alright.
過去の4つのゲームはすべて
It is possible to explain all the past 4 games if Natsuhi is the criminal. So are they saying that if one person's the guilty party, they're the killer in all of the games? I didn't know that was true. I thought it was a changing killer. Interesting. Okay. There is a single killer in all of the games, but someone has died. Everyone dies. That means there has to be another person, right? There has to be... It has to be... It's supposed to not be Battler, but that doesn't really work. Aw. Like, Natsuhi is like the first person dead in the second Twilight. In the first Twilight of the second chapter. How does she do all the other killings? Weren't they explicitly asking about traps and explicitly defining them as not timed devices or traps of any means? Okay. I think I have to revise my approach to several of the previous games.
夏日の犯行とそのイレギュラーで説明可能です。もはや
Alright.
ベアトリーチェなる魔女の犯行とは二度と語らせま
So
せん
it's。possible to explain all of the past 4 games with Nazi as a criminal or with certain irregularities based on that theme. I won't let anyone say it's the crime of the witch
直
Beatrice
ちに編
again.
纂に入り、極上の物語を献上してご覧
I'll
に入れ
start
ます。
compiling it together at once and then present a first-rate tale to you. Okay.
ベアとの魔女伝説は一かけらも残してはダメよ。
Don't use a fragment. Don't leave a single fragment of Beato's Legend of the Witch behind.
使用人たちの間の噂、不可解な出来事をそうであるかのように語る空気。
The rumors among the servants. The way people talked about unexplained events as though the legend was the cause. I mean, we did have confirmation that she was actually dead and it wasn't body doubles in the chapel murders. I'm like really interested how they explain that. Even if they're objectively wrong, I'm interested how she's going to explain that the chapel murders were carried out by Natsuhi, and then all the following murders were also carried out with her as an actual murderer and not deploying traps. That would be very interesting. She's absolutely dead, but she proceeded to kill people without using any devices with like her bare hands. It's gonna be a little bit strange. When people are curved. I thought it was a changing killer because like the different people, everyone had died over the course of the 4 games in the first round. Except for like Battler. And Beatrice, obviously. So it made sense to me that it was changing, but alright. Natsuhi's the killer. Even if that's wrong, that's a strange thought since now I have to consider another person that doesn't exist. So this 19 years ago person, even though they said that it has to be someone here, it's not actually possible, right? Either that or it's someone who discarded their name, so we don't know who that would be. And if we're following Nox's rules, we'd have to know who it is. So I guess Canon or Shannon is the killer? They're the only people we know who have alternate names. Shannon makes the most sense, but she's also dead in several arcs first time. I don't really know how she does that. Even with someone discarding their name, it doesn't really make sense. So there exists someone else who uses Kinzo's name after he dies, who is the killer that we're unaware of who's on the island? Beatrice was one person, so Beatrice has to be someone, right? Maybe? She's not a person. Based on the number of people who are supposed to be on the island, she doesn't count as one of the people who's on the island. Unless you want to say she's this 19 years ago person who was introduced in this arc. I guess we could say that that's the killer then, and has to be the killer because every other person has died in the first Twilight, I think. Let me double check. If I go back, I think everyone's died in a first Twilight, right? Let's see. Kinzo's died in first Twilights. Died in first Twilights. Died in first Twilight. Died in first Twilight. Died in first Twilights. Has Nanjo died in the first Twilight? I think Nanjo died. I'm not sure if Nanjo died in the first Twilight. I think they almost always have the doctor around, right? But, like, everyone's actually been murdered. Nanjo is never the first, right? Nanjo and Battler? Which leaves us with, like, Battler has to be the killer. If all of them are solved with one name. If I have to pick a single name, it has to be Battler, but Battler was said not to be the killer. It's good to have the doctor to confirm the murders. I guess Beatrice could be Battler. That's why he's so in love with her, because he's a narcissist. He's in love with himself. But they red texted that it's not Battler, so I'm not really sure how you're supposed to do that. If you have to solve this with one person, and everyone's died in the course of the game, and been confirmed dead, I mean, we have to assume that it's Shin and Canon body doubles because they have alternate names, or we have to assume that there's a wrong thing. The red text won't be wrong. Nanjo has died and been confirmed dead, so he can't be the killer? Helicopter Okinoki, maybe. It would have to be one of these two discarding their names and somehow escaping their own death. I guess that's what I'm going with. It has to be one of these two as the final killer. As every single other person does not have a clue why they would ever be the killer for every single round. Unless there is another person on the island we aren't aware of that is the killer, I think it has to be Shen and Canon, because they're the only people who have hinted at having alternative names that might be able to get them by the fact that they are listed as dead. They are the only people who can be the killer in this story. Alright, well, at least we have that info.
金蔵の幻想と連動した魔女幻想
The way people talk about unexplained events is the legend of the cause, the illusion of the witch. They worked alongside the illusion of Kinso.
すべて完全に処分しなさい
Deal with all of it completely.
無論です。直ちに着手いたします。
I'll get to it right away.
現在、家具たちの身柄を拘束。
Right now we have the
より
furniture
し
in
ろの
custody.
特定を急いでいます。
We're hurrying to identify their vessels. The 7 Sisters of Purgatory had already been taken into custody. The damn noisy sisters who served Beato faced nothing but denial. What sort of illusion were they based on that allowed them to manifest? Everything would be exposed and denied.
アイゼルネ・ユングフラウはすでに調査を開始しております。
Oh, they use Eiserne. Eiserne Jungfrau has already begun its investigation? Okay.
最新の調査結果では、1960年代にニューヨーク近隣で製造された可能性が
According to
濃
most
厚
recent
です。
results, there's a high probability they were constructed during the 1960s in the vicinity of New York.
すでに補佐官が現地入りしております。
An aide has already been sent to the location.
1960年代煉獄の七姉妹はメイドイン USA?
The 1960s, the 7 Sisters of Purgatory are made in the USA. Well, at least they're not made in China, right?
ソロモン王に連なる千年の魔女に仕える家具とか威張っておきながらとんだまがいものじゃない
Even though they bragged about being furniture connected with King Solomon and serving a 1,000-year-old witch, they're a total sham.
何者なの
Who was it?
報告によれば、オカルトマニアの富豪イミテーションを売りつけて高額詐欺を働く集団があるとか。
There's this group of big-time swindlers who make money by selling fakes to rich fans of the occult.
騙された富豪が同様に曰く月を語って転売するため、
Because the deceived millionaires try to resell the fakes as though they were real?
マリア間で偽られ神格化された可能性があるとのことです。
There's a chance they've been falsely deified by enthusiasts in
裏
the
付けと
field.
詳細特定を急がせています。
We're rushing to find confirmation and further details.
その界隈では後ろ宮金蔵はどんなパチモノにも大金を払う乗客だったとか。
Kinzo Ushiromiya was a stalker who'd pay big bucks for any fake occult object.
それが煉獄の七姉妹の正体？
And that's what the Seven Sisters of Purgatory
お
really
かしいわ。
Hilarious.
ベアトの魔女幻想らしいとんだまがいものだわ。
Total sham, just like Beato's Illusion of the Witch, right?
7つの大罪を語る分際でイミテーションの見あり物風情だったわ
They
け
call
です。
themselves the Seven Deadly Sins. They're actually cheap fake souvenirs. Whoa, whoa, Erika. They are a sin. Lying. Fraud. Sin.
まあ
Just saying.
私
They're the Seven Deadly Sins. They're all the same sin. That's the problem. Well, from the very
初めて
beginning.
見た時からいかがわしい見あり物屋で売ってる文鎮に過ぎないとは
I figured they were
思って
nothing
た
more
わ
than
けですが
paperweights sold at some shady souvenir shop.
文鎮。
Paperweight?
その真実はもう七姉妹には突きつけた？
Have you confronted the Seven Sisters with that truth yet?
いいえ、まだです。
No, not yet.
あいつらまだ自分たちは1000年以上前に
They still seriously believe they're created by a great sorcerer over 1,000 years ago. Well, no wonder they aren't very useful.
偉大なる魔術師によって生み出されたとか本気で信じてやがります。
I'd like to confront them with the perfect evidence and truth right away
早く完璧な証拠と真実を
and let
突
them
き
know
つ
they
け
are mere
自
paperweights.
分たちが原価30ドルにも満たない
Worth less
文
than
鎮風情である
$30
ことを思い知らせてやり
その時どんな顔を見せて絶望するのかしら。
When you do, I wonder what their faces would look like as they lose all hope.
楽しみだわ。
Can't wait.
その際には私を呼びなさい。
Call me when that happens.
最高の紅茶と梅干しを持って鑑賞に来るわ。
I'll come watch with some of the blessed black tea and dried plums. Beato's illusion of the witch has already been penetrated. It's been proven everything was simply the result of human delusions. What kind of delusions created them, and what caused these in the first place? When the answers were proven perfectly and shoved in the faces of those concerned, the illusion would vanish and be completely annihilated. This is what they meant by execution.
処刑は見せ物ではありません。
An execution's not a show. I beg to differ. Executions were regularly used as public entertainment for literal centuries. Millennia, even, okay? Executions are a show. In fact, in the period you're basing this, in the period you base your own dress upon, public executions were in fact a spectacle that people would attend for entertainment. Get out of here, Nox.
原則非公開です。
As a general rule, it's not made public. Hello? Hello? What? What? Guy doesn't know shit.
言
They
論
hold
委
pub
員
they
に
hold
荒らせられ
executions
る
in public
大ベ
squares.
ンカステル教による
They held executions in the public square, my friend. Delano A. Knox, you're a dumbass. This is an inspection by the Great Lady Burncastle, member of the
大
Senate,
本院が職務を適正に執行しているかの視
so
察
she
です
can observe that the Great Council is performing its duties
異
satisfactorily.
端審問官風情が拒否する気ですか
You, as a mere inquisitor of heresy, wish to deny her this right?
ええ、そうよ。
That's right. For someone who wants to talk about 100-year-old rules for novels, they don't seem to understand 100 years
ドラノー
ago
ルたちが
how executions
職務
work.
を正規の手順で遂行するかどうか、私は元老院を代表して視察するだけよ。
That's right, I'm just observing as a representative of the Senate to make sure you follow the proper procedures when you carry out your work. Alright.
ワルギリア、ロノウェ、ガープたちも現在拘束へ向けて準備中です
We're currently preparing to take Virgilia, Ronove, and Gop into custody as
シ
well.
エスタ姉妹近衛隊が捜索に当たっています
The Siester Sisters Imperial Guards are conducting that investigation.
無論
Okay.
その後にベアトリーチェに関わった3人についても拘
Of course,
束
we will then
処刑しま
detain
す
and execute the 3 connected to Beatrice.
ドラノール、シエスタ姉妹の正体は？
Delano, what is the true nature of these Siester Sisters?
高い確率で 犯行に用いた凶器がより代ではないかと推定されます。
I believe there's a high likelihood their vessels are weapons used in the crimes.
ガートルード上級補佐官が専従チームを結成。
For this purpose, Senior Aide Gertrude has formed a special team. You're way too behind everything to know shit about anything right now. It is what it is. We're in the tea party, so we're at the very end. And honestly, this game has been like stalling for like 2 hours to make any progress. It's kind of just been spinning its wheels while things happen, and you wait for someone to actually do something to push the plot forward. There's not really anything happening right now. It's just, it feels like it's just, like, it's mostly blathering dialogue. The most useful thing I've learned in the last, like, I don't know, 2 hours, I think, of reading this has been that potentially every single one of the stories might have the same killer. And I don't really see how that's possible. Right now, I'm kind of just racking my brain while the text shows up on the screen. Like, I'm just sitting here reading text. It's kind of just like the text goes, you know, in my ears, in my ears, in my eyes, out my mouth, and I kind of just ignore it because it's not really useful, while I'm trying to think of a way that all of the murders could be committed by one person without traps, and like who it could be, and it doesn't really seem to make sense, but that's all I've read so far that could be useful information in the last bit.
全件を調査中です。
We're currently investigating all cases.
シエスタ姉妹の処刑も楽しみです。
I'm looking forward to the Siesta Sisters
一
execution
人
too.
ずつ
One at a
まとめ
time?
て一度に。
All at once?
茶葉の缶を中身全部ポットに入れるバカはいないわ。
No one's stupid enough to put an entire can of tea leaves into a pot at once. I beg to differ.
一さじずつゆっくり味わわなくちゃ。
You got to enjoy it slowly, one spoonful at a time. Sounds to you like they're revealing the true nature of some imaginary characters? You mean like the fact that these 7 Sisters of Purgatory aren't real, legendary, magical artifacts? And like the Siesta Sisters might be weapons? Like, okay. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised or like particularly intrigued. Like, the fact that they're not real magical people is not a surprise to me. The stakes have been carried around and identified as stakes for a long time. The fact that they're like weird ritual stuff, it's kind of just like, and okay.
まったくです。処刑は連日行いましょう。
Let's have their executions on consecutive days.
家具たちに、魔女たちに、
With the furniture and the witches, one by one.
一人ずつ連日の処刑賞を必ず
I'll
やお
send you an
届けしま
execution
す。
every day.
素敵じゃない。
Wonderful.
何しろ
There
随
are-
分の人数がいる
There
か
are
ら
a lot of
ね。
them after all.
2週間くらいはたっぷり楽しめそうじゃない。
Like we'll be able to enjoy ourselves for a full 2 weeks.
誰から処刑するか、その順序を彼らに決めさせるとか。
Looks like we'll be able to do the rest for 2 weeks, and maybe we can let them decide which ones to execute first.
処刑概念についても最高の提案をするように。
Make sure you think of something great for the execution concept. Like what? Doesn't this Burn Castell look a lot like the Higurashi character? Yep, they're one and the same person. One of them is just aware of their magic, and the other is not. So it's like, okay, I get that the Siesta Sisters are probably guns. That's like really straightforward, based on like how they're being used in some way, shape, or form. It's not too unreasonable. It's like, a weapon that's killing people from like a long way away. It's probably a gun at some point, being disguised as something else. That makes sense, considering every time someone gets killed by them, almost every time someone gets killed by them, there's like a hole in someone's head, or part of someone's head's blown away. Like, them being like a few guns isn't like super important or really a reveal. Like, we've seen so many bodies that have been shot. Like, it's like, ah, yes, the Siester sisters. They fired a magic laser arrow, and you're like, uh-huh, uh-huh. What does it say about the story? That it's mundane, but we, like, already knew that. The question is how they're able to, like, work through the... How they're able to get into a room without breaking the windows or shooting a hole in the wall. Presumably that means someone breaks into the room and then locks it and puts the chain on afterwards, but like it's really weird. Their numbers are all specific ammo cartridges. Okay, so it would tell us exactly what gun they are if I googled them. Or at least give us an idea of what kind of ammunition they are. I believe 45 fires all of them. I assume that's like a handgun round, right? 410 doesn't do any shooting, it's always 45. Anyway, make sure you think of something great for the execution concept.
古今東西のあらゆる処刑を毎
I'd like
日
to
楽しみ
enjoy
たいわ。
executions both old and new from East and West every day.
処
I think
刑
the only
は
one that
大
was
法院規定の方法で
the only one that was like
規則があります
semi-solvable as far as like what was going on was like when Kyrie was in trouble. I was guessing that the person was trying to shoot at them from like the floor or something and fucking missing, I think, when Kyrie was like calling Battler on the phone. I think that's what was happening. Was someone was on the floor below them trying to shoot at them. And they're like, hey, I'm probably fucked because like, you know, something's happening. I don't know what else it would have been. The rules state the method of execution is to follow the great court regulations.
お任せを我が主。
Leave it to me, master.
必ずや魅力的な処刑賞を準備いたします。
I'll prepare a fascinating execution show. You found no holes in the dining room? No, it's not the dining room, it's the second floor room. It's the second floor room if Kyrie died in on the 4th game, I think. The one after she escaped from the prison, ostensibly. Which means I'll certainly prepare you a fascinating show.
最低でも四つ咲き系くらいにはなさいよ。
You'd better quarter at least one of them.
無論です。
Of course, of course.
ヨーロッパ各国からアジア各国まで。
I'll make a list of the best forms of execution from all countries, from Europe to Asia. There being one culprit doesn't exclude accomplices in the general cast. Yeah, probably not. I guess you could say that the culprit is one person, they died really early in one of the routes, and then killed everyone else. Maybe. Now that makes it really hard to pinpoint culprits, because then it could be anybody as there's no way to tell what's going on. Yeah, it doesn't exclude accomplices, and the accomplice can just continue and carry on the mission. Which is certainly a thing. Alright. I'll make this the best forms for all
東西
countries.
のあらゆる
Europe
王
to
国
Asia.
が採用した国王への反逆罪にのみ適用される各国最高の処刑を列挙してご覧に入れま
Let's
す。
see, from Europe to Asia, which are used by kingdoms east and west for crimes no less than treason against the king.
私からも処刑方法を提案したいわ。
Yeah, Ava killed a bunch of people. Is she the... But who's her accomplice? Who is the accomplice that killed Nanjo? Presumably Cannon or Shannon. You'd like to think of some execution methods myself, which means Cannon or Shannon has to be the mastermind. Or Ava's the mastermind because she clearly killed people. Or someone else is the mastermind puppeting Ava, and we have to figure out who the fuck that is. Because there's an unknown number of accomplices and people in cahoots here, so we could say... What, Ava Hideyoshi, George, Cannon, or Shannon? That's like a fairly long list, but that would be like the people in the set for episode 3. And we have to do something similar for that. I think a lot of the times we're going to include Cannon or Shannon as one of the puppets. But that might mean they're actually the mastermind, because they're consistently showing up, and like a lot of the times it seems, it's like a couple times it's been like Rosa looked really suspicious, But if Rosa's suspicious and is like the one doing shit, then like I suggested, like in this arc, like Rosa might be the one killing stuff. But if that's the case, who's mastermind, or is Rosa the mastermind masterminding Ava? That doesn't make sense. So it's a bit hard to follow. Basically, I can put like half the cast under the list of accomplices, but it doesn't lead me to a mastermind. You'd like to think up some execution methods yourself. Oh,
それに
okay.
悩むことは寝苦しい夜の最高の
Pondering
清
that
涼
will
剤
be
だ
the
から
perfect way to relax on those sleepless nights.
アイデアを練って今度手紙で送るわ
I'll iron out my ideas and send you a letter soon.
かしこまりました。我が
Certainly,
では
Master.
すべての幻想を打ち破り、ベアとの魔法体系を完全に打破した最後の最後にて。
We'll have the Burn Castell style one as the grand finale, and at the very, very end, when all the illusions are broken and Beato's magical compendium has been completely
ベア
crushed.
トリーチェの処刑にて、我が主の望まれる最高の処刑を。
I shall present my master with the finest of executions that she desires, the execution of Beatrice. Isn't she already dead?
ありがとうエリカ
Thanks, Erika.
あなたのおかげで私は病の辛さを当分の
Thanks to
間
you.
忘れることができ
It
そうだ
seems I'll
わ
be able to forget the pain of my illness for a while. So does Battler show up only at... Does someone show up only at the last minute to save the Beatrice?
あなたは最高だわ
It's just perfect.
私の駒私の分身
My piece, my double. You want to die with peace, Beatrice?
かわいい娘
My adorable daughter.
もったいないお言葉です。我が主。
Your words are too good for me, Master? Alright.
エリカあなたに栄誉と褒美を与えるわ
I'll give you honor and a reward.
ベアトの最大の象徴であるあの大広間の肖像が
That reward is the greatest symbol of Beatrice, the portrait from the
あ
reception
れを
hall.
外して叩き割りその薪にてケーキを焼いて食べなさい
Take it off, smash it to make firewood, bake a cake with it, and eat it.
そして残った額縁にあなたの肖像画を掲げることを許
Then I'll
す
allow
わ
you to put your portrait up in the remaining frame. The portrait's gone. Bake a cake with it. Hey, Erika's portrait.
ありがとうございま
Thank you
す。
very much. She says thank you, but honestly, I gotta tell you, it looks like someone took a knife to your chair, Erika. It doesn't look that great. Portrait cake? Burn thinks of some weird desserts. No, she said... I mean, one, we know the cake's a lie, so she's not actually getting any cake. But more importantly, she said, use it to make firewood, then burn the wood and make to make a cake. So basically, they're like heating. She's getting a cake. She's making a cake normally, but she's using firewood made from the portrait frame. There's a dead person's hand on the bottom of the portrait off screen. Really? That's cool.
最高の栄誉です。
Great on. Is it now?
ベアトリーチェの名前と痕跡のすべての抹殺抹消
He'll eradicate and erase Beatrice's name and all traces
そ
of
れ
her
がすべて終わるまでの間あなたにこの
until
閉
it's
じられた
finished.
六軒島の主となることを命じるわ
I will order you be made the master of this sealed off rock in Jima.
奇跡の魔女ベルンカステルの名にお
In
い
the
て
name of the Witch of Miracles, Burn
その
Castell,
日まであなたに魔女の位を与えることを宣
ever
言する
claim
わ
you will be given the rank of witch until that day.
これよりあなたは真実の魔女エリカを名乗りなさい
From now on, you'll call yourself Erika, the Witch of Truth. Alright. You'll be given the rank of witch until the day. Huh, interesting.
し
The
真
the
実
Witch of Truth?
魔女。ありがとうございま
Thank
す。
you very much.
我
My
が
master.
主。この栄誉に恥じぬ一層の働きを誓います。
Congratulations, Erika. You're the Witch of Truth. I vow to work even harder so this honor won't be wasted. She's a piece. Even though she's nothing more than a piece, she's being granted the honor of calling herself a witch like her master, if only for a brief stretch of time. Erika was so moved that her actions had been acknowledged in this greatest form that she trembled.
ドラノールは引き続きエリカを補佐
Continue
し
to aid Erika. Tell lies, become witch of truth. That's how magic works. I don't mind that though, because she's manifesting truth. It's not about the fact that she speaks the truth. It's the fact that she manifests things that appear as truth. So being able to manipulate people's perception of the truth is something that the Witch of Truth would be able to do. Which is what she's done, right? She can create her own truth. Yeah, she effectively creates her own truth. It works. Like, I don't have a problem with the Witch of Truth part. The Witch of Truth title, that seems to work. The Lanner continue to aid
そ
Erika.
の進捗を私に報告しなさい
Report her progress to me,
良いです。
as you wish.
ところでラムダはどこ
By the way, where's Lambda?
あちらにおられます。
She's over there. From the guest seating on the second floor, she pointed downwards. Lambda Delta could be seen beneath Battler, who hung there dead and pierced by the red longsword.
後ろ宮バトラか。
Ushirmiya Battler.
面白い男だったわ。
You were an interesting guy.
そしてもっと面白くなれたかもしれないのに。
And you might have become even more
残
interesting, but
念ね。
too bad.
見事な死に様じゃない
What a wonderful way to die.
エリカ
Erika.
このバトラの亡骸は屋敷の大広間に飾るといいわ
You can hang Battler's corpse at the mansion's reception hall.
次に私がこのかけらに訪れるときは私をその前で迎えなさい
Next time I come to visit this fragment, welcome me in front of it.
かしこまりました。
Certainly,
我が
Master.
主、愚かなる男の姿を永遠に主の勝利の記念碑といたしま
I'll
す。
make that foolish man an eternal monument to my master's victory.
それは素敵ね。洒落てるわ。
That sounds wonderful. Really tasteful.
漆喰で塗り固めて美しい純白の石像にするといい。
Maybe you can coat him with plaster and make him a beautiful white statue.
可愛らしくデコなんかもしてくれちゃったら最
It'd
高
be
ね。
wonderful if you decorated him all cute.
はい。
Like
ラ
what?
ムダデルタ教。
Pink with those fake gemstones? Pink cloth, rhinestones everywhere? Yes, Lady Lambda
ご
Delta.
期待に添えるよう努力します。
I will strive to answer your expectations.
おめでとう、魔女就任。
Congratulations on becoming a witch!
一時的なものであれ。私はあなたを友人として迎えるわ。
Though it will only be for a while, I'll welcome you as a friend. Erika was so overcome with emotion, tears came to her eyes. Because for a piece, no greater pleasure exists than having your work acknowledged by your master.
最後にはベアとも剥製にしてやりたいわ
In the end, I'd like to have Beato stuffed too.
そして大広間に高々と飾って
I'll
やる
decorate the
の
reception hall with her.
白樺ご飯
Galaxy Express?
人間狩りの伯爵よ
That one that isn't Night on the...
私、
You know,
魔女じゃなかった頃にあれを読んで、
that back when I wasn't a witch.
永遠の命を得た人間って、どうしてここまで残忍になれるんだろうって
I always thought it strange that humans who obtained eternal life would become so cruel.
不思議に思ったことがあるわ。
At the
あ
time.
の時の私は
Honestly,
正
didn't
直
relate.
共感できなかった。
I just couldn't relate.
魔女になって1000年を生きてよくわかるわ
And after becoming a witch and living 1,000 years, I fully
あれ
understand
の
it.
筆者は本当の意味で私たちの残酷さをよく理解していた
That
の
writer, he
よ
could just understand our cruelty really well in the truest sense.
次はどこへ行く
Next,
どうせ旅立ちはお互い背中を向けてでしょ
I bet we say farewell with our backs turned,
あ
right?
なたに退屈をしたくないからよ
That's because I don't want to let you get
あり
bored.
がとう、
Thanks,
ベ
Bern.
ル。
You can be sure. I'll count to 100 and then start searching for you again.
退屈させない子ね
You really don't let a person get bored. Of course, we're just here to Lambda Delta's just here to entertain Burn
だ
Costello,
か
right?
ら好きよ愛してるわ
That's why I like you. Love you.
またどこかで会いましょう
Meet again
も
somewhere.
っとも100年先か1000年先か未来永
However,
劫再
we may
会し
not
ない
ever
かもわからないけれど
Be reunited for yet 100 years or 1,000, if ever.
た 大丈夫よ。
That's okay.
愛し合う二人にかけらの海は狭いわ。
The Sea of Fragments is tiny to a pair who love each other.
第三の男
The third man.
天井桟敷だってば。
Oh, Children of Paradise, of course.
あの星空のように輝く無数のかけらを
If you could escape the poison of just a single evening's worth of
一
boredom.
つ砕くたびに一晩は退屈の毒から解放されると分
Each
か
time
っ
you
た
smash one of the countless fragments that glitter like a star
お
in it.
前だって星の数を数えてみたくない
Even you would want to count the stars in the sky.
うまいうまい。
Not bad, not bad. These bitches super gay. Good for them, but awful for their poor victims. Yes. Yes, they're poor victims. The Voyager wishes travel across the countless glittering futures of possibility and gobble them up, trying to escape their illness called boredom as long as they can. Even tiny, tiny fragments created by the human, known as Beatrice, are now gobbled up by the two witches. Their victims are just pieces. True, if they're just pieces in the game, is anyone really suffering? They lost its glitter. Those who earlier called themselves rivals in front of Beto, especially because they created them to suffer, now stop the charade and laugh together playfully.
エリカ
Erika,
新しきこのかけらの支
New
配
ruler of this
者あな
fragment.
たが真実を紡ぎこの世界の終焉までの物語を描きなさい
weave the truth and create the tale that leads to this world's demise.
次は第6のゲームだっけ
Next is the sixth game, right?
はい
Yes.
第6のゲームです
It's the sixth game.
エピソード6はなんてタイト
Is
ル
that the
にす
title
る
for episode
か
6 yourself?
あなた
Yeah,
に
it's
決
a
めな
bit
さい
messed up. But it's not clear that pieces actually have any agency for themselves other than the agency they're given. So like the pieces are only capable of they're not capable of making rational thinking decisions. They're only capable of making the decisions that the person controlling them makes them make, right? Like Battler was intelligent in the first half of the arc, not because Battler is intelligent, but because Lambda Delta made him intelligent for that section. Or he argued this because she wanted him to. Like, every single thing the pieces do is not them saying it, it is actually the person puppeting them saying that and using them as a mouthpiece. Based on how it is, like where think of the parts where they're sitting in this trial hall and literally everyone is like turned off, and then they just turn someone on and have them act like they sort of would to say the things they want them to say, or how like some of the pieces literally just say exactly what the piece wants them to say, or randomly come up with information they couldn't possibly have and start spouting it off. It seems less like they're people. Pieces can't go in things they wouldn't do. They specialize in actions that are their personality. Yes. Yes, they might be like really simple AI. Whether or not you should make an AI be capable of acting out grief. Is an AI acting out grief because it was told to act out grief actually sad? That is a good question. If you consider the pieces as more like simple AI, if they're not capable, are they shackled from making a decision? At which point they are a real AI and should probably should probably be considered like pitiable or as something that is suffering because they're unable to act but are aware of actions and suffering? Or are they simply like tools that act out of the shade of a personality? Like currently like a chatbot. Like you could make a chatbot act sad. It wouldn't actually be sad though. It would just be going through the motions and saying things that sad people typically say. Right? So my perspective was originally at the start of this series that these were either parallel worlds or these were individuals being forced to relive this. But as the games advanced, it seems less like either of those and more like all of the individuals in the game are actually just objects that
have the facsimiles of real people. As they don't necessarily act like people or even themselves sometimes. And not in a, like, oh, they're having a bad day. It's more like they're clearly acting in a way that someone is, like, literally puppeting them to say or do whatever they want them to do. Alright. Let's decide the title of episode 6 for
もはや
ourselves.
この物語の紡ぎ手でありマスターであるのはあな
After
た
all,
なのだから。
you're already the spinner of this tale as well as master. How would there be an episode 6 if Battler is dead?
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much.
実はもう決めてあります。
Actually, I've already decided on one.
あら、
Oh,
なら聞かせ
Already?
てちょうだい。
let's hear it.
なんてタイトルなの？
What kind of title is it?
はい、エピソード6。
Episode 6.
本当はじらしたいんですが、お教えします。
I'd like to leave you hanging for a bit, but I'll tell you.
何よ、もったいぶらずに教えなさい
Come
よ。
on, stop being a smartass and tell us.
新米魔女のくせに先輩じらすとかってありえないわ。
A new witch like you shouldn't be teasing your seniors. Sorry, senpai. Dot, dot,
エ
dot.
ピソード6、チェックメイト・オブ・ザ・ゴールデン・ウィッチ。
Episode 6, Checkmate of the Golden Witch. Your title sucks, Erika. I know they use that for the titles, something of the Golden Witch all the time, but it's not really all that great. You're very proud of it, but I'm saying it's pretty bland. Our addition of new elements, question mark's been added. Oh, we're down, okay. She's so corny. Yeah. In Japan, you can't disrespect your seniors like that. I don't have a problem with that. Alright, on to the question marks. Let's see what's going on, Erika. The Witch's Tea Party. Alright, question mark chapter, the Witch's Tea Party. In the cathedral devoid of people, Battler stands there, supported by the blade that runs through his chest that is not, evidently not... I'm looking at the proportions. Hold up. Hold up. Give me a second. I need to stand up and check something. Okay. I'm pretty sure my proportions are right. I'm just gonna point this out. Battler must have really short arms. Because Battler's actually leaning over and his arms are actually short here. Battler is leaning backwards, but if he stood up straight, his arms wouldn't reach to his waist. Like, look at the angle he's at. Look at the angle he's at. His torso is actually too long. His torso is too long. It's long Battler. Like long cat, but it's Battler. So, his arms barely reach past his like the way his arms reach is about as low as your arms would actually reach if you're standing tall. His legs are too short, possibly too. They'd reach his waist. No, if he stands up, they wouldn't. If he stands up, they would barely reach his waist. They'd be like at waist height. But your arms actually reach below that. Your arms reach to your thighs. So his arms are too long. His torso is actually too long. They need to make it a little bit shorter. Funny how that is. The only way to tell Peace Battler from Meta Battler has long torso. Yeah, he's a long boy. Yeah, if they made his torso a little bit smaller, it'd work, but his arms look too short for his body size. But his torso is too big for that. Like, this guy's really big. In a strange way. But hey, it is what it is. You get the idea. I mean, they got everything else right. Like, I assume someone who's more knowledgeable can tell me there's something wrong with the perspective of the room and the arches, but fuck, like, I don't know that shit. I'm just pointing out my proportions for drawing people, and let me tell you, I suck at drawing people, so. And I've tried to draw this exact this exact state of a person, so I can't say that they're doing a considerably worse job than me when they're doing better than I can. I can only criticize, but I have tried to actually draw this. So, in the cathedral is voted people. Figure could be seen still staring up at the heavens, its chest pierced with a red longsword that pinned it in place to the ground. The figure was Battler. Ironically, it looked just like what he'd done to Beato with blue wedges in the 4th game. Battler died quite some time ago, and in his place the concept of death, well, it meant nothing to, except that one has stopped thinking. So he's only stopped thinking. Therefore, in a sense, Battler was not dead. After being defeated in a fight over the truth and surrendering, he no longer had the strength to think of a way to resist. That's what made him dead. Oh, okay. The Laner's massive longsword, which had been left in place of a tombstone, fastened Battler to the spot even after his death. The sky was being lit by a faint light seeping out of an incredibly high skylight. Quiet footsteps rang out across this still cathedral. From the darkness behind a pillar, a woman slowly stepped forward. It was Beatrice. Just like they'd been the whole time in the Golden Land, her eyes had no light in them. They were still muddled over with gray. This person was once unable to even drink black tea to her satisfaction by her own will. But though it was slow, and though there was no life in her eyes, she was surprisingly walking. Then with slow, deliberate steps, she reached Battler, who was still dead, pierced through. And then, she slowly touched Battler. She tugged on his sleeve. Okay, we're safe, I thought we were gonna see some really weird stuff. However, Battler showed no reaction when she realized it wasn't sleep, but death. The witch with the hopeless gaze let her head hang even lower, and then she quietly whispered,
嘘つき
You liar. I'm sorry. They told me what the word was in Japanese before they gave me the rest of it. Beato softly touched Battler, and then she pressed her forehead against Battler's chest. There was no longer any heartbeat. It wasn't just because he surrendered, it was because the witches chased him from the game board. So from now on, Battler would never return. From now on, the Golden Witch Beatrice would have no reason to exist. Well,
ありがとう
thank you. Aren't you a witch of Aren't you a witch of endless? Just res him. It should be easy. For one such as you to resurrect Battler.
嘘つき
Thanks,
さよな
liar.
ら
Goodbye.
そして
And
ごめんね
sorry. This endless witch Beatrice, even the real one, fucking useless. Just boop, res. Gul'dan would res him in a second. She ain't the Witch of Resurrection, is she? No, she's the Endless Witch, and she can restore people for an indefinite amount of time. As long as she has the body. Her res is on cooldown. Yeah, maybe res is on cooldown for another 19 minutes. She couldn't even resurrect Saktaro. She couldn't resurrect Saktaro because he's a legendary item that has only been found one place. That has only been found in one place and handmade by someone who rejected their existence. If the person who made them doesn't reject their existence, then they can probably be resurrected. Especially if she just goes back and asks them if they're alive, because Peace Battler isn't dead, so therefore she can resurrect Real Battler because the people who made him don't believe he's dead. And like Rudolph doesn't. If she like walked in and was like, "Hey, is Rudolph is Battler okay?" He'd be like, "Yeah, he's fine. Did something happen?" And then you'd go pop resurrect him, assuming that Rudolph is his father, and we aren't about to learn that he isn't his father is either. And then the Golden Witch completed her task and scattered as a spray of gold. She needs to res NJ. NJ can res Battler. True. NJ is believed to be alive by both people. You could also resurrect NJ, and NJ could res Battler, and then resurrect herself for real? In the Golden Land. The Grey Rain. Gently continued following. Emiya simply would have won. True. Lots of people would have not failed where Battler failed. They kind of just wrote Battler as being a complete idiot and repeating things they'd already disproven in red text not 2 minutes ago. But I mean, that was supposed to be like a reminder of how the story and the content goes, because there was probably a gap between episodes 4 and episode 5. But it's still kind of funny. He was written pretty stupid. He was written as pretty stupid after supposedly learning so much. In the Golden Land, the Grey Rain gently continued to fall, and there was a faint aroma of good black tea. Beato stared blankly at its surface. There was Virgilia continuing her knitting, along with me and Delanor talking to each other. This is a recollection. A recollection from Battler's memory which Delanor's sword must have given him as it pierced him. A recollection of that time Delanor came to visit the tea party in the Golden Land. Back to this scene that happened in this episode.
私も同じです。
The same
次
with
に
me.
太刀を交えるときは遅れは取りません。
The next time we cross swords, I won't hold back.
上等だ。相手してやるぜ。
I'll be your
全
opponent.
力で来い。
Come at me with all you've got.
約束します。
I promise.
全力です。
With everything I've got. Delanor, huh? I thought she was an emotionless killer doll without a heart. But maybe she's actually pretty approachable. Though, of course, neither of us will show any mercy when fighting over the game board. For a while, we gazed at the rain-drenched rose garden as we quietly enjoyed our tea.
しかし、恐ろしいもんだな。
Still, it really is terrifying.
お前の
The
戦
way
い
you
方は
fight.
ノックス10回だったっけか
Nox's 10 Commandments, the Decalogue, was it?
ミステリーのお約束ってやつだろ
The classic rules of the mystery genre, right?
はい。
Yeah.
我が父が考案した戒律です。
Commandments conceived by my father.
隠し扉は存在してはならない
Hidden doors must not exist. We're going through all this again,
ノッ
okay.
クス第3条だっけか
Nox is third, right?
だから探偵は隠し扉を探す必要さえないわけだ
That means there's no need for detectives to even look for hidden doors?
なかなかの暴論
Sounds
だ
pretty
な
ridiculous. Berncastel said it herself. She said that because they were forbidden by Nox's third, even searching for hidden doors was a waste of time. I'd like to counter that by saying it probably isn't so uncommon for a rich family mansion to have a hidden door or two built into it, but apparently that sort of rule works perfectly well in the mystery genre. By the way, there exist many wonderful mysteries in which hidden doors appear, and where hidden doors are the theme. Of course, this is limited to novels which have the premise that hidden doors exist. If that premise didn't exist, hidden doors must not exist, so that because the premise doesn't exist, there's no need to search for them. I think that's probably the essence of her ridiculous argument. It's like the detective trying to expose the truth and illusion trying to confuse it with the mixture of truth and lies. They're getting blended together, leading to a bizarre form of argument similar to a devil's proof. Making it a closed-room murder seemed to be accomplished by a witch with magic as fantasy, and exposing it as a human's crime, done with tricks, is anti-fantasy. Examining all possibilities to expose the nature of these is mystery. But it's also mystery to claim the possibilities with no hints supporting them are unworthy of investigation. Let's say a hidden door is hidden in a way there'd be no clues. Would claiming a hidden door therefore exists even though a detective couldn't find it be anti-mystery? There's enough of that. This argument's too far of a digression from the riddles I'm supposed to be solving. My fight's simple. I'm only fighting to explain how it's possible for a human to carry out the crimes that were supposedly carried out by a witch. The whole discussion of mystery and anti doesn't serve my purpose, that's why I didn't have any particular interest regarding these rules known as the Nox Decalogue.
ノックスはお嫌いですか？
You dislike Nox?
苦手だな
Doesn't work for me.
隠し扉の存在を調べもせずに全否定可能なんて
There's something strange about being able to deny the existence of hidden doors without investigating.
悪魔の証明並みにうさんくせえな
As dubious as the devil's
フ
proof.
ァンタジーの対極のはずなのになぜか同じ論法になっちまってる気がするぜ
Even though it's supposed to be the exact opposite of fantasy, it somehow feels like it's the same kind of argument. Fair enough. It seems like it's an argument of the same variety. It's magic because I know that doors don't exist. I won't bother looking for them.
お前の親父が作ったんだもんな。
Your dad's the one who made them after all.
お気になさらずに
Do not worry.
戯れに過ぎないとおっしゃる方もいらっしゃいますので
After all, there are some who say it's nothing more than a silly game.
バトラ君には実会はかなり傲慢なものに感じられるのでしょう。
Decalogue feels like something very arrogant to you, right, Battler?
正直なところを言えば
To be honest, yeah.
隠し扉は存在してはいけないから調べる必要さえないなんて。
If an actual detective said he didn't need to look for hidden doors because they must not exist,
頭のネジが落ちてないかどうか一緒に床を探してやるところ
everyone
です。
would start looking along the floor to see if some of his screws came loose.
ではバトラー
In that case, Battler.
その第三条をなかったことにしましょう
Let's say the third commandment didn't exist.
そうなったら密室ミステリーはどうなるでしょうか
In that case, what would happen to closed room mysteries? If Nox's third hidden doors are forbidden didn't exist,
つまり密室トリックのオチに隠し扉が OK になるってことか。
in other words, hidden doors would always work just fine as the standard trick for closed rooms.
手がかりや伏線のある隠し扉ではありません
This does not refer to hidden doors with hints of foreshadowing.
隠しなのですから無論探偵にも発見できない隠し扉で
It
す
refers to doors that even the detective cannot find because, of course, they're hidden.
バトラ君はよく悪魔の証明により発見できない X の存在を仮定して戦いますね。
Adler-kun, you often fight using a devil's proof, assuming the existence of an undiscoverable element X.
つまりはそういうことですよ。
That's what this is about.
最悪だな。
Well, it'd be horrible.
密室ミステリーが読み物として破綻しちまう。
The closed room mystery genre wouldn't be worth reading at all. Yes, in this universe, Ronald Knox has a anime daughter named Delanor, his own name backwards. Who are no longer worth anyone's time, would cease to exist. No one would want to try solving the riddle from the beginning, not if they knew the answer might just be an unforeseen hidden door. In there.
せめて隠し扉はありませんと保証してもらってからじゃないと
Unless you have some guarantee no hidden door
推理
exists,
する気も起きない。
you don't really feel like trying to reason it out. I see.
ノックス第3条は必要だな。
Noxus, there it is.
それ
Necessary.
がなけりゃ密室ミステリーは読み物にもなる
Without
し、
it,
ね
it。wouldn't be worth reading closed room mysteries.
推理する気も起きないとはつまりどういうことですか？
And if you didn't feel like trying to reason it out, what would that lead to?
つまり
You wouldn't want
読
to
む
read
気
it.
もしねえってことだな。
そういうことです
That's it.
人間は推理可能だという保証を得なければ思考さえできないか弱い生き物なのです
Humans are weak creatures who can't even think unless they have proof that reasoning is possible.
推理可能
That reasoning
す
is
なわ
possible.
ち頑張れば解けますよという励ましが必要なのです。
In other words, they need encouragement to let them know they can solve it if they work hard enough. Might be true. It's the same with exercising. If you're told to run around the campus 10 times, you can tough it out. However, if you don't know how many times you're supposed to run around it, you probably get tired out before you made it around 3 times. The same goes for thinking and reasoning. Humans view a problem differently depending on whether or not it's guaranteed to be solvable.
推理小説で探偵が犯人が分かったと宣言するシーンがあるでしょ。
I mean, there's always a scene where the detective announces he's discovered who the culprit is in detective novels.
あれはつまりそこまでの文章で手がかりはすべて記したから。
It's a sign saying the hints have all been given in the previous parts of the
読
story.
者諸君、どうぞ
Dear readers,
推理をしてください
Please
と
try to
いう
reason
合
it
図
out.
なのですよ。
へえ。単なるお約束のセリフかと思ってたが、そんな意味があったんだな。
I thought it was a classic line, but I guess it does have the effect.
意地悪に言うと、
To put it harshly.
探偵がそう宣言しない
Until the
限
detective
り
says that.
どんなにミステリーを愛する推理自慢の読者であって
Readers
も
won't feel like
推
trying to
理を
solve
す
it,
る気力
no
は
matter how
生
much
じ
they
ない
love
という
solving
ことで
mysteries.
す。
I mean, I've seen enough movies that or TV shows that retroactively add new scenes to make it possible to solve things that I'd say the mysteries suck a lot of the time and people still like them.
過去のゲームに
Or
おけるあ
completely
なたも
unsolvable
そうでは
without
あ
those
りませんでしたか
Weren't you like that yourself in the previous games? Now that I hear it, maybe that really was the case. Maybe my fight against Beato really began in the second game. At first I didn't try to tackle the closed room riddles Beato threw at me. After all, I knew nothing except the people died in a closed room and the windows and doors were locked from the inside. I mean, talk about having no hints to go on. I refused to argue on the grounds I couldn't fight because the lack of clues made reasoning impossible. After that, she didn't sneer at me, asking whether I'd repeat that over and over in an endless repetition of moves. At the time, Beato said this. Okay, why wasn't he immediately skewered and killed there? Doesn't make a lot of sense, but rules are flexible. Of course not. I give you the thing people like you always demand.
そしてそれに対し情報を与えると今度はその情報の真偽を疑う根拠否定
The reason you always stop thinking and then moan about is lack of information. If you're then given information, you start doubting whether the information is true based by denying the basis. Okay.
便利よな
Isn't that
無
convenient?
能を棚上げする実に小気味よい言葉よ
What clever words to hide your own incompetence. Then she said she'd give me certain information that couldn't be denied and created the rule called Red Truth. Once we reached that point, the curtain rose on my battle with Beato.
俺はベア
Except
ト
you decided not to fight her. Or
この
the
物語
last couple
は
chapters.
挑めば解けるという保証をも
And
らっ
that's
て
when I finally had to guarantee I could solve this tale if I tried.
初めて同じ土俵に上がったというわけか。
I stepped up to the stage with her for the first time.
ベアトリーチェ、
It's
不思議な方です。
She's a strange person.
謎こそが魔女の住まう狭間なのに、自らその謎を暴くことのできる赤き真実
The
を
riddles are the only holes witches can live inside of. She began to give you red truth, a method by which those riddles could be solved. You could say the red truth is a hint Beato gives me so that I can compete in this war of reasoning. Like Candy, because I've been given hints, it's like she's saying, try and solve it. Or it can be solved. An enigma that's guaranteed to be solvable. It can't be called a true enigma.
これではまる
It's
で
almost as though
ベアト自身
Beato herself
自分は本当は
is
魔
admitting
女じゃないって自分で認めて
she
るよ
isn't
うな
really a
ものじゃ
witch.
ないか。
Of course not. Of course not. We've been here, Battler. Jesus, come on, man. You're just coming to this conclusion?
おやおや
My, my.
確かにそうなりますね
That seems logical.
本当におかしな子で
She
す
really is a strange child. Beato gave no answer. With gray eyes, she did nothing but blankly gaze at the steam rising from her black tea.
我が父は思考する力に杖を与えるために実戒を生み出したのです。
My father created the Decalogue to act as a crutch for the power of thinking.
決して物事を傲慢に決めつけるためではありません。
It wasn't made as a way to arrogantly decide things.
思考する力に
A crutch for the power of thinking?
そうです。
Right.
ノックス第8
The
条
Nox's 8th.
提示されない手がかりでの解決を禁ず。
It's forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented.
これは手がかりなしに当て推理で推理をしてはいけないという
This
意
is
味
not-
だけではありません。
This does not only mean one is forced to avoid making theories that are not supported by clues,
逆に言えば
if you turn it around.
出題者は解決のための手がかりを必ず提示しなければならないとい
It
うこ
means the
と
one
です
proposing the riddles is forced to display clues that lead to the solution.
つまり
In other words,
実戒にし全ての謎には必ずヒントがあり
if you follow the Decalogue, all riddles must have hints.
よって必ず解決は可能だと保証されているこ
It's
とになるわ
guaranteed
け
that
か
finding the solution is possible. So this is what they mean by a crutch for the power of thinking. If you believe it's solvable, you start by wanting to have a go at these riddles. If you're capable of believing the hints do exist, you'll get fired up about rereading the story to search for them.
確かに
Admit.
推理しようとする人間にとって
It might have the
勇気を
power to
与え
give
る
courage to
力は
those
ある
trying
か
to
も
solve
しれ
it.
ないな。
ノックス実戒はミステリーの出題者に課す制限と思われがちですが、
You seem to think the Nox Decalogue is a series of restrictions imposed by the one who made the
読み
mystery,
手にとっても大切なも
but
の
it's
な
vital
の
for the
です
readers.
実戒を杖とすることで
By
私
using
た
the
ちは
Decalogue as a crutch,
推理する勇気と必ず隠されているに違い
you're
ない
given the
手がか
courage
りを
needed
求
to use
めて
reasoning.
何度も物語を読み返す気力を授かるのです。
as well as the willpower to reread the tale several times in search of the clues we know must be hidden there.
硬くて開かない。ジャム瓶の蓋みたいだな。
Like the lid of a jar of jam that's too tight and won't
母
open.
さんがよく言って
Like
た
mom
ぜ。
used to say.
開かないと思ってると、いくら頑張っても開かないっ
If you
て。
think you can't open it, it won't open no matter how hard you try.
スポーツにもそういうのあるよな。
Same thing happens in
必
sports.
ず自分は成し遂げられるという強いイメージがあるのとな
They
いの
say
で
whether or not you have a strong image of yourself and believe you can win no matter what
記録に大きく差
has
が
an
出る
impact
と
on the
いうし
records. In that case, the Nox Decalogue isn't really a set of arrogant and strict restrictions. You can see it as a way to encourage readers who are trying to solve the mystery by telling them to give it their all since it's definitely solvable. An interesting way
面
to
白い
interpret
解
it.
釈だ。しかし、世の中の推理小説すべてが必ず実戒を守ってるわけでも
Still,
ない
I've
と
heard
聞
that
いた
not all detective novels around the world follow the Decalogue all the time, right?
そういう作品にぶち当たったとき、騙されたって
When you
こ
bump
と
into
に
one of
なら
those,
ないのかよ。
won't you feel tricked? I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. That's how it goes sometimes. The twist is there's a twist. The twist is that there's a twist, one that you maybe couldn't have seen coming.
実戒もまた解釈の一つに過ぎず、すべてのミステリーに適用できるものではありませ
Even the
ん。
Decalogue is nothing more than a single interpretation. It can't be applied to all mystery stories.
父の原理主義者の方々は実戒を破った作品を異端、
So, among
Ayun,
fundamentalists of my
激
father's
しく
work,
糾弾される方もいらっしゃるようですが、
it seems there are those who harshly criticize works that violate the Decalogue and call them heresy. Oh, I'm not a big fan of heresy. Or am I? I'm not a big fan of heresy as a loyal servant of the Imperium. There's no end to arguments like this in the mystery world. Was this or that famous detective's novel really a fair mystery, in other words? One that follows Knox's Decalogue? The sort of argument's already an eternal theme of the mystery world. In fact, in mystery discussions, arguments like these are sometimes become more heated than discussion of the actual tricks.
そりゃ糾弾したくもなるだろうな。
I know why they want to criticize it.
実戒に従い、
They try to
解
solve
ける
it.
と信じて挑
They
ん
believe
で
it's solvable and follow the Decalogue, but it's not actually meant to be solvable like that at all. I'm gonna stop and actually make some commentary on this instead of just reading this. I think this is like an okay argument. I think it's like an okay discussion. That is not necessarily directed at me because I kind of understand most of that. Like, I understand that the reason Knox's rules exist is because otherwise people would be like, well, you could just interpret this and it'd be impossible to solve. Like, that's fine. I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with an explanation for that, but it's not really directed all that much at me.
実は解けるようにできてませんでした。
I can understand how that'd get pretty annoying.
さぞや悔しくて仕方ないだろうぜ。
When fighting with the Decalogue, there's one thing you want guaranteed from the beginning. In other words, you want to guarantee this detective novel will adhere to the Decalogue. Some approximation of it is fine. If a work labels itself as orthodox mysteries, then you have nothing to worry about. However, if the mystery genre contains many unorthodox subgenres within it, yeah. Does that mean trying to use reasoning in an unorthodox detective novel is a waste of time? It depends on how difficult or ridiculous they're trying to be. Looking at it that way,
傲慢な気もするな。
it does feel arrogant.
はい、
Yes.
私も父の実戒をそのような傲慢の武器にされるのは
I find it
非常に
sad my
悲しい
father's
ことです
Decalogue's been used as an arrogant weapon.
お前は実戒を武器に
You think he's talking about
さっきベ
Higurashi?
アトと戦ったわけだが。
He could be talking about Higurashi. Because Higurashi definitively uses some elements that are not introduced until much later on, specifically like what, arc 5, 4? He doesn't introduce stuff early on all the time. Even the solution for how they get through things is not introduced until late. Although I think in terms of Higurashi, anything that's introduced by element at the end of story 4, the halfway point, is probably okay. Because you're supposed to not know everything, and it's in 5. You're supposed to have been given every clue by the end of 4? I guess? But, like, there's characters introduced that are actually relevant to the end of the plot in 7. Like, Hanya's introduced in what, 7, 8? I think she's introduced at 8. I think she's introduced in 8, right? Like, you're introducing a character in 8? That's kind of annoying. Like, introducing Hanyu so late is probably a bad call. It is forbidden for unknown drugs. They're hard to understand scientific devices to be used, including the, yes, the brain, like the cancer, what the fuck's it called? The disease? The Hinamizawa syndrome that's not actually ever explained or elaborated on until the last arcs either. Yeah. Introducing things at the very end and then introducing them as fact is pretty bad. He violates a few of these. He violates a few of these in pretty bad ways that makes it basically unsolvable. Unless you assume that there's like some unknown drug. Unless you assume that everyone is like. You have to assume some things and you have some information that you can't actually have known until you get to later arcs. I think that you can wait until like 4 though. I think you can wait till like 4, maybe 5. Like you have to go to like 6, which is supposed to midway through the arcs to even get to like the actual answer, which I think is kind of bad. But I think if you would know the answer, to Higurashi by like 4, it's not really all that worth reading though. I mean, that makes it even less. That makes reading the rest of the chapters even less of a good use of your time, because you're just like, okay, this is everything they have to do. This is what it is, and it just makes it drag on. So, this game is less a mystery novel and more just like a novel that happens to contain a mystery, which is not a mystery novel. His format also doesn't help with that. I can see why people argue that it's not a mystery novel or not a good mystery novel. They're probably right. But that's his chosen format. So whatever. That's the if you're gonna argue that like up a whole bunch of that, if you're gonna argue that it violates a whole bunch of Nox's rules and isn't a great mystery because it's not really solvable until it's like really obvious because he's throwing that stuff in your face. Yeah. In the basically explanation arc, right? Okay. You fought against Beato using the Decalogue as a weapon?
それはつまりこのベアトのゲームの世界がノック
Can I
ス
take
実
that as
会にのっ
proof
とっ
this
ている
game
とい
World
う
of
証な
Beatos
のか
follows the Nox Decalogue? When I asked that, there was a strange silence. Virgilia, Delanor, and of course Beato all remained silent for a while. Almost as though my question touched at the core of something.
それは
It's something I can't answer myself.
私の
Of
口
course,
か
the
らは
characters
言えま
inside
せ
the
ん
game, the people discussing the game are the ones who are supposed to answer that.
どうして
Why?
これはこの子の作ったゲ
This is
ー
the
ムです
game this child made.
あなたと勝敗を決めるためのゲ
A
ーム
game to decide which of the two
こ
of
の子
you
は
will
それ
win.
をミステリーとファンタジ
This
ーの
child
対
calls
決
it
の
a
ように呼ん
confrontation
でい
between
ました
mystery and fantasy.
しかし残念ながら本格推理とは一言も
Unfortunately,
言
she
ってい
never
ま
said
せ
it was an
ん
orthodox mystery.
すなわち実会にのっとっているとい
It
う保
means you
証
have
は
no
ないと
guarantee
い
this
うこと
follows
で
the
す
Decalogue.
しかし同時にミス・ベアトリーチェはあなたとの勝負のゲームだともおっしゃっています。
Same time as Beatrice said this game is a contest between you and
そ
her.
れはす
Okay.
なわちあなたにも勝利する余地
In
が
other
あ
words,
る
there's a
とい
chance you
う
could
こ
win.
と。
Thanks.
すなわち
In other words,
推理は可能だって
you're saying reasoning is
そう
possible?
言いたいのか
この子に言わせればおそらく推理は可能となるのでしょう
If you ask this child, she'd probably say reasoning is possible.
しかし、この子とバトラ君が送り手と受け手の関係であるように
However,
二人は異なる存在です
just as she is the challenger and you're the challenge, the two of you are different
ベ
creatures.
アトにとって推理可能なつもりで出題したものが
Something Beato might have proposed thinking it
あ
is
なたにと
solvable
っても推理可能なものなのかは
may or may not be
別の
solvable
問
for
題
you
で
as
す
well. A good point. Lots of novels, lots of mystery novels have this problem. Lots of mystery novels and stories have this problem where people are like, it's very easy to understand if you just look at exactly this location for 6 hours. Oh, good night, my dude.
Like if you spend 40 hours doing research and know absolutely everything about this topic, or know absolutely everything about this topic, it would be easy. And it's like, about that. That is sometimes a problem for mysteries. Or riddles in general. Where you have to try and guess how much your audience could reasonably know. And how much a reasonable person would be willing to look into something. Let's for example, let's say we propose a simple riddle that any Japanese person would know. However, if the person we're telling this riddle to is a foreigner with a Japanese-English dictionary in their hand, it might be almost impossible to solve. In other words, it's possible to have a one-sided solvable problem. Which might be easy for the questioner, but extremely difficult for the person trying to solve it. A fun fact, encryption. Simple encryption, very difficult, right? By the way, do you know the foreign riddle? Why do dragons sleep all day? The answer is the battle of the night. It's a riddle for the English realm, so it might be tough for a Japanese person.
だからこそ
For that
私は
reason.
この物語がバトラ君に絶対に解けるものだと約束することができま
I
せん。
cannot say for certain this tale is something you'll be able to
し
solve,
かし
but I can
こ
promise
れ
you
だ
one
けは
thing.
赤き真実で
I
それを
guarantee it
保
with the
証
red
しま
truth.
す。
What?
なん
ベアとはあなたに解いてほしいと願って
Beato wanted you to solve
解
it,
けるようにこのゲームを
so she made this game.
この物語の謎を生み出しました。
The riddles of this tale solvable.
それだけは私が赤き真実で保証します。
That alone I guarantee with the red truth. It was the one guarantee all those who try to use reasoning desire.
その答えが我が父の実戒にのっとり導き出せるものかは分かりません。
I don't know if my father's decalogue will apply to that answer or lead you to it.
しかしバトラが悩み苦しみ推理の指針を求めるときにもしも思い出したなら
However, when you run into a tight spot and want a compass for your reasoning,
我が実戒も試してみてください。
please try using my decalogue if you remember. Alas, I can't remember all of them.
再び挑む勇気とひょっとすると何か新しい発見を与えてくれるかもしれません。
Your friend pissed you off when he was playing the game because they kept going, you can figure everything out in the first 4 chapters. Shit had you so heated. Yeah, that's pretty annoying when people say stuff like that. I mean, I think we had someone say that you could solve it in the first... we had someone say that you could solve it about halfway through the first chapter, actually. In here. They said someone did a deep dive and they solved the entire thing by halfway through the first chapter. So, I mean, it's debatably possible. Of course, if you already know the conclusion and all of the things about the story, you could say that there's sufficient hints, but I don't know if you would actually be able to do it. Same thing with Higurashi. I mean, if you want to assume there's a disease. Someone solved it after episode 2. Yeah, okay, so it's solvable by episode 2, episode 1, alright. I guess it's solvable for everyone, I should have already solved it then. Might give you renewed courage, it might lead to discovery. Maybe.
心底行き詰まったらお
If
前
I'm
の
really
戦い
stuck,
方
I'll
も
think
参
about
考に
your
してみる
fighting
ぜ
style.
っていいのかよ敵に塩を送っちまって
Are you sure it's okay to help out an enemy like this?
お気になされずに
Hey, that no
手
mind.
土産も持たずに訪
I
れ
came to
た
this tea
茶
party
会
with
です。
without a gift.
茶化の代わりとなったなら幸いです。
I hope you enjoy this in place of a snack. Well, I hope I can solve it.
それに
I can
私と
solve it by
再び相ま
episode
みえ
8.
たなら
If I can't solve it after episode 8, I'm gonna be in a bit of a pickle. Hey, that no mind. Alright. I hope you enjoy this in place of a snack, and if you come face to face with
そ
me
んな
again,
悠長なことを言っている暇はおそらくないでしょうから。
there probably won't be time to speak of such things so casually. Nox's Decalogue. Virgilia's Red Truth.
ベアとは俺に解いてほしいと願って
You're a human, not a witch. You can't use Red Truth.
解
Fuck
ける
off.
ようにこのゲームの
You made
謎を
riddles
生み出した
of this game solvable?
In other words, Beato wanted me to be capable of solving it. Isn't that proof that reasoning is possible? Of course, that's from Beato's point of view, and it doesn't necessarily mean that reasoning is possible for me. Compared to before now, when I didn't know whether reasoning was possible or not, that one line might give me a great deal of courage. At least it has the power to silence any negative thoughts about this being useless.
推理できると先に相手に証明させなくては推理をしない。
Unless the other party assures you your reasoning is possible, you won't do
ま
it.
るで奥手な若者の恋愛のようですね。
It's like love between shy young people.
恋愛
Love?
ええ、
Yeah.
自分のことを愛してくれると相手が先に証明しない限り、自分も相手を愛したくない。
Unless you have proof the other person loves you first, you don't want to love them back.
でしょ?
Right? Both boys and girls want to hear someone else say they love them first. That's their dream. If they're in love, they don't want to love the other person until they're sure this person loves them back. After all, there's nothing as painful as one-sided love. And the scars of the heart left behind last a long time. As they're afraid of that pain, they want proof that the other person loves them first more than anything else.
なるほど。推理小説における作家と読者の関係を面
Your high
白
school
く
strat?
表現しています。
Your high school strat? Wait until someone says they love you? Well, I hope it worked out. It's an interesting way to explain the relationship between writer and reader in a detective novel. Maybe you could liken detective novels to that. Both the writer and the reader first want the other party to say they'll solve it, or that it can be solved, and until the writer is assured the reader will certainly have a go at the riddle if they propose it, they don't want to write their story. The same goes for the readers. Unless they're assured they will certainly be able to solve the riddle if they try, they don't want to read the story. Because they don't want to write what they consider a masterpiece and be hurt when no one reads it. They don't want to reason about what they consider a masterpiece and be hurt when they realize it was all useless.
その理論によると
By that argument.
まさに奥手な小学生中学生の恋愛だな。
It really isn't a stretch to say it's like love between shy elementary or middle school aged kids.
気があるくせに打ち明ける勇気もなく
Elementary
相手の
school
告
kids.
白を待って
So that was someone's high school. Someone's like, it was a high school strat, and he's like, yeah, it's like elementary school kids. He said school kids and specified elementary later. Even though they really do want it, they don't have the courage to reveal their feelings.
もじもじしたまま何の進展もなく
So they wait uncomfortably for the other person to confess. By the time summer ends, nothing's happened.
いやいや他の男とくっついちまうことだってあるぜ。
More than that, sometimes the girl even ends up going out with an entirely different guy. Oh god, come on, Battler. You're calling out a lot of people
俺の
here.
初恋もそんな感じだったさ。
That's what my first love was like. Okay, Battler's calling himself out. That's a bit better. Along with those one-sided feelings they can't express, they lament the passage of a summer that will never come again and the days of their youth end. The writers who wouldn't write until he gained the support of readers goes for all eternity without releasing his maiden work. The reader who waited for the writer to rise to fame goes their whole life without knowing the joy of the mystery genre.
バトラ君、
Battler-kun?
その卵が先か鶏が先かという奥手な恋愛は
When does this chicken or the egg type of shy
どの
love
段階にまで進んだら相思相愛の関係になるのですか?
reach the level where it can progress into mutual love?
それは積み重ねだろうな。
It's probably when things start to pile
ま
up.
ず友達関係から始めてコミュニケーションを増やし
It starts as a relationship between friends that communicate with each other
こい
more
つ
and
はきっ
more.
と俺のことが好きで
When both reach
俺
the
もこ
level
いつ
where
の
they're
こと疑
sure,
えなくなった段階を二人が共有できたところでそ
when
の
they're sure that I like this person, they surely like me.
まあ多分自然と恋人関係に進め
They
るんじゃ
probably
な
just
いか
naturally
と
become a pair of lovers.
唐突な告白で始まった関係は割と別れることも多いが
My impression until now is that relationships starting with a sudden confession of love tend to break up more often.
実は互いに告白したことがなく気づいたらずっと一緒にいたって連中の方が案外
Whereas
付き合いは長いってのが俺の今日までの
pairs who
印象
never
だ
actually confess to each other but realize they're always together usually stay together for a surprisingly long time.
つまり
In other words,
互いが相手を信じる信頼関係が生まれたら
this happens once the two of them believe in each other and a relationship of trust is born.
ということですね。
Is that what you're saying? Maybe.
意外だぜ。
Maybe.
ミ
It's
ス
a bit
テリー
odd.
ってのは作家と読者のバトルだと思ってたんだが、
I always thought the
実は
mystery
そうじゃ
genre
ないの
was
か。
a battle between the writer and the reader, but maybe that's not quite right.
ええ、互いが信頼し合った上でしか成立しない
It's something that cannot go on without a relationship built on mutual
愛
trust.
ある関係なのですよ。
A relationship with love?
おう。じゃあ、こいつ
So
と
you're saying our
俺の
relationship
殺し合いじゃなくて、愛
isn't
ある
one of
関係だ
killing
っ
each
て
other,
いうのかよ。
but one with love?
意地悪をし合う小学生同士の関係程度にしか見えませんがね。
It doesn't look like anything more than a pair of elementary schoolers bullying each other to me. Virgilia joked at us in a middle-aged woman sort of way. Still, I'm not expecting friendship or a trusting relationship. I can accept her as a rival. Beato is fighting at full force trying to make me acknowledge that she's a witch, so I'll respond to that and go all out trying to deny that witches exist.
ミス・ベアトが正面から全力であなたにぶつかってい
You'd be
い
so
どうしてあ
sure
な
that
たは言い切れるのですか？
Miss Beato is fighting at full force.
見てりゃわかるだろ。
Can't you tell by looking?
あなたに全力で正面からぶつかっていると彼女が赤き真実で宣言したわけではあり
It
ませ
isn't
ん。
as though she proclaimed in red she's fighting you at full force.
なのにあなたはそれを疑わないわけですか？
And yet, you have no doubt?
赤き真実以外は何も信じないとおっしゃ
You're
った
the
あ
one
な
who
たがです。
said they wouldn't believe anything but the red truth.
バトラ君の言うところのコミュニケーションが増え、互い
Surely
の
this is
関
the
係が
stage
疑えなくなった段
Battler
階
mentioned
と
earlier,
いうものに違いないですね。
where communication increases and you learn not to doubt your relationship. Virgilia and Delanar giggled together. One guy, multiple women, and the topic is love. Wait a second, isn't this the worst possible formation for getting made fun of? Just say something offensive like Delanar doesn't count as a woman. Easy. Easy. You'll get roasted, and it'll be even worse. When I tried to bring back a proper mood for a tea party in the rainy Golden Land by clumsily searching for a more noble subject. Virgilia saw right through me and I laughed. Even amidst this, Beato kept looking downwards with those gray eyes, staring into her black tea. That's right. Virgilia and Delanar have given me so many hints, and yet I barely thought about it at all. By now, it's all too late. Let me think. Now that everything's too late already, I've got an endless amount of time on my hands. Let me think. One more time, let me think about the red truth Virgilia gave me, and the crutch of the Decalogue that Delanar lent me. With the red truth, Virgilia guaranteed at the very least Beato left enough room in this tale for me to achieve victory. The red truth will guarantee once again, and it will give me the power to start my heart beating. Okay. There's the red crutch of the Decalogue Delanar lent me. She warned me in the beginning that the Decalogue isn't so almighty it can solve riddles. However, she said something about how it could be used as a method to solve. No, take on riddles. Let me try it. Though there's no guarantee this tale is a mystery or fantasy, let me continue believing I'll be able to solve it, that it's a solvable tale, a mystery. And let me take it on one last time. Okay. When I came to, I was suddenly in the strange tea room where I'd often argued furiously with Beato from across the table. Of course, Beato was nowhere to be found. It was just me, isolated and alone. That's okay. Even so, I won't stop thinking. Okay. Good night, my dude. What were Nox's commandments again? I'm sure Delanar explained most of them when slamming me with them. Of course, I even recall them vaguely. What was the first one?
謹んで申し上げる。
Allow me to
ノ
speak.
ックス第一条。
Nox is first.
犯人は物語当初の登場人物以外を禁ず。
It's impossible for the culprit to be anyone not mentioned in the early part of the story. When I muttered about what the first one was, as if answering my question, Delanar's subordinate appeared. Without bothering with an unnecessary hello, she told me nothing more or less than what I wanted to know.
そうだったな。
That's right.
第一条
The first.
犯人は物語の最初から登場している人物でなければならない。
The culprit has to be one of the people mentioned in the early part of the story. In other words, the culprit must have already appeared as early as the first game. That's the most basic in the mystery genre, a classic assumption. A classic assumption? Have I really been keeping to that assumption? With each new game, the number of people in the tale keeps increasing. Most of them are fictitious, dude. It violates the closed circle rule, but by that point, everything gets screwed up. Did I give up on the inside, thinking the true culprit or mastermind must not have shown up yet, that the reasoning was therefore useless? If I read this as a tale of fantasy, new characters keep showing up, to the point where even having demon kings or gods or creators appear wouldn't be strange at all. Even if the true mastermind first appears in one of the last episodes, I'd have to accept it. Or if I read it as a mystery and stick with that conviction, there's no need to worry at all about anyone who shows up later, because Nox's first clearly states it's impossible for the culprit to be anyone who appears later on in the story. Of course, there's also what happened with what both Delanor and Virgilia said. There's no guarantee the tale follows the rules. So of course, I can't deny the possibility the culprit first appeared in the second game or later. However, it's one way of thinking. Okay. Yeah. This time, I'll forget about the Devil's Proof completely and try to borrow the power of the Decalogue. After all I've already said, I won't be able to reach the truth without a multi-angled outlook. Sure. First one seems like a fairly reasonable assumption. You could maybe say like the first or second chapter, but I probably wouldn't say like the fourth chapter introduces it. It would be a little bit too late to introduce them. You wouldn't have a feel for them. And it'd be kind of annoying if like NJ was the guilty party or something. That'd be fucking weird. Plus, most of the characters they've introduced in the series have explicitly been like demons or spirits that aren't actually real.
なら
In that case, this
何
means
度
the
も繰り
culprit
返
in
され
all of
た
these
このゲー
repeating
ムの犯
games.
人は18人の中の誰
It's
か
one
だ
of
っ
the
てことに
18.
なる。
But we spent like an entire... Sorry, I know Battler's a dumbass, but does this mean Battler... This is like the 5th time Battler's come to this conclusion. I'm not even joking. Battler's come to this conclusion at least 5 times. Actually more, because he waffled, I think 3 times in the first arc on whether or not the culprit was one of the 18. This is... So this would actually make it about like 5 or 6 that he's decided this is the 18. I'm getting really tired of Battler coming to this conclusion. Really tired of it.
19人目の幻想なんて初めから必要ない。
From the very beginning, there's no need for an illusion of an 19th person. The only reason this one's acceptable, even remotely, is because he's approaching it from a different perspective. And that is actually relevant. Whereas the previous times, he was like, I'm approaching it because I don't want... He's like, magic isn't real, therefore it's one of the 18. He's approaching this from a new perspective, though, and the new perspective is he's using Nox's Decalogue, which is a different approach entirely. I'm okay if you reach the same conclusion via a different method, a different methodology. Entirely. This is acceptable because he's not just saying it is this because of this, and using that same logic to arrive at the same conclusion multiple times, and then rejecting the conclusion because he doesn't like the conclusion. That is stupid. But this is fine because he's coming to this conclusion from a different angle. Which might concretely verify it because he's actually looking at it from a different angle. Which means this is the first time he's actually chessboard thought an actual process. Good job, man. Even the first of Nox's commandments denies the existence of an unknown person known as the Witch from the very start. If I had followed that in the truest sense, I might not have suffered so miserably in the second game.
ノックスの
Nox's second.
第2条は
謹んで申し上げたてまつる
Allow me to speak.
ノックス第2条
Nox's second.
探偵方法に超自然能力の使用を禁
It's
ず
forbidden for supernatural agencies to be employed as a detective technique. That's peculiar because you have used that before, but that's fine. Delanor's other subordinate appeared without a sound and gave me the answer to my question. That's right. A detective can't go around using magic. Except we have done that. In fact, that happened in this arc. Because I would say saying using your detective powers and not actually searching counts as using magic.
そして
So,
これがフェアな戦いである
Fair battle.
探偵と同様に
that mean like the detective?
犯人もまた
The culprit's
魔法
also
を使っ
not
て
allowed
は
to use
なら
magic?
ないということだよな。
謹んで申し
Allow
上
me
げ
to speak.
解釈は自由と知りたまえ。
You are free to interpret it as you please.
だよな。
Right.
ああ
Sure, sure.
俺の自由に解釈させてもらうぜ。
I'll interpret it my way. If this game is a battle between me and Beato, then because the tale is solvable, no elements will appear that make it impossible to solve. In other words, things like magic mustn't appear. When they do appear, I shouldn't suspect the mystery element is breaking down. I should question why it was shown and suspect the witness and observers. Yep. That's right. That was the Beato's greatest weapon in the second game. Depictions of magic which couldn't exist in a mystery. By showing me that, she forced me to think the tale wasn't a mystery, and therefore that reasoning was impossible, so I surrendered. However, if I believed unshakably it was a mystery, it would have been completely obvious to doubt the witnesses who claimed to have seen magic. At the end of the first game, it was revealed this tale was passed on to people in the future by that message bottle. Someone wrote about this crime, this tale. In other words, this entire tale is a world that includes the personal opinions of an observer. Namely, the person who wrote the message in the bottle. In other words, the observer isn't God. It's human. There's no guarantee the depiction's impartial. By the end of the first game, it was clear to me we've broken the constant premise of the mystery genre. The story itself must be seen through the eyes of God. For that reason, it's possible to doubt even the observer as well as the witnesses. If I could have doubted this much, no matter how much seemingly unsolvable displays of magic appeared, I wouldn't have had to blindly accept them and give up. It's okay, you learn that in the third game. However, that begs the question, is it possible to solve a tale written by an observer who isn't impartial? If I get obsessed with this, my reasoning will end here. However, I had to believe, that Beato was trying to fight me through this tale. Because it's a fight. That means I have been given a chance at winning. By giving me that, does that mean reasoning is possible? Perhaps. This part's tough. Unless I believe the cruel witch took on the risk of losing to try and have a fair fight with me, I can't get past this part. Just like Virgilia said, it's like love. If I can't believe that Beato is fighting me head-on with everything she's got, I won't be able to reason any further than this. Sure, I'll acknowledge it. Unless we acknowledge that we love each other, we won't be able to get any further. Alright. When Virgilia ran out of patience with the two of us, shy and incapable as we were of acknowledging that out loud, she gave me the red truth instead. Or the red truth of saying Beato wanted me to solve it, so she made the riddles of this game solvable. The hell? It's like Sato-san in Class A says he likes you. Like hearing a love confession via a friend. I really am. Pitiful. Reasoning is love. If we don't love each other, the reasoning won't start. Battler. Simping for Beato, of course. Gotta find that. Gotta find a way to do that in every conversation. In that case, how do we say that we love each other? If you think you can solve it, just try. You're incompetent. Like hell, you can solve it. According to George Anarchy, people like that are called tsundora. The brutal witch is finally starting to look a bit cute. If I meet her again, I want to try saying you're such a tsundora. If I meet her again, somewhere. Tell me the other parts of the decalogue. I don't care about the order. Something that seems useful.
謹んで申し上
Allow
げ
me to speak.
ノックス第
Noxus
8提示されない手がかりでの解決を禁ず
It's forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented.
謹んで申し上げる
Allow me to speak.
ノックス第6条
Noxus 6.
探偵方法に偶然と第6巻の使用を禁
It's
ず
forbidden for accident or intuition to be employed as a detective technique. It must not be solved with clues that aren't presented. It must not be solved by relying on accident or coincidence. If this tale is made to be solvable, we can read this the opposite way. In other words, clues must be prepared so the case can be solved. It has to be made in a way that can be solved without relying on coincidence. If we believe that Beato is challenging me to a fair game where reasoning is possible, then I can be sure of that. In other words, Beato has already left me clues, hints, and messages in this tale. It isn't from the Decalogue, but Erika or someone said this. There are 3 riddles to be exposed. Whodunit. One is the whodunit, who is the culprit. One is howdunit, how did they commit the crime. One is the whydunit, why did they commit the crime. All of this means the clues related to these 3 riddles are already present inside the tale. Correct. And that is why solving fucking Higurashi is impossible. There is no way you solve the why done it And the how done it. In the first chapter. Physically impossible. As even the concept of parasites that are location based is not introduced in the first chapter. Therefore, the how and the why is not clear. The how and the why are not clear. You could maybe, if you are incredibly lucky, you could guess what, who. There are 4 question arcs. Yes, but I'm talking solving in the first question. In the first question arc. By the end of the first question arc, there is no way you have that. I don't remember which arc they actually introduced that in. But I also don't think the why is made clear in any of the question arcs. The clues related to these 3 riddles are already present in this tale. Strictly speaking, it's like this. Because she wanted me to solve these 3 riddles, Beato scattered hints about. Though whether I'm capable of catching those or not is another matter. Even if you think a riddle you propose is easy, it might be difficult for the person trying to solve it. In that case, it's only natural there'll be a difference in how difficult each person finds it. Therefore, as Beato goes through each successive game, she watches me closely and tweaks the game as needed to get a good arrangement. When Beato realized I'd completely surrendered in the second game because it was too hard, she was secretly worried. If I surrendered on and lost the will to fight, the game would no longer remain on even footing. Therefore, to make me regain my will to fight from 3rd and onwards, she set things up in a way to make it easier for me, giving me tips on how to fight and a few hints. Virgili and Ronove obviously appeared so they could help me. As though we still had... Although we still had the usual crazy magic shows, she gave me the metaphor of the Brown Tube trial, as well as tips on how to fight back. I finally understood how to fight. And most likely, at the end of the 4th game, Beato wanted to have the all-out showdown with me that she'd probably wanted. Or she managed to have it. She got her showdown. And then Beato acknowledged my abilities to become full-fledged and entrusted me with her heart. She entrusted me with explaining this tale, didn't she? In that case, it was dumb of me to boycott most of the 5th game. I mean, yeah. It was kind of weird that you just threw a temper tantrum and sat out the whole game. Just because I was so disgusted with the 2 witches. It doesn't matter who the game master is. All I need to do is search for the truth in Beato's game. On the contrary, I should probably thank those 2 witches just a little for continuing the game in Beato's place, now that she's gone and left everything to me. Feeling guilty for dumping the game now, Battler, because you're supposed to be saving your family and all that. Of course, I doubt the evil witches were trying to do anything of the sort. They're witches after all. Culprit, crime, motive. The answer to those 3 ultimate riddles, the hints must be scattered throughout the previously shown tales. It's probably a faint light, like trying to find beads that have fallen onto a sandy beach. They're definitely there. They're so faint, unless I strongly believe there's no way I'll be able to find them.
金家
Please,
謹んで申し上げ
allow me to speak.
なんだ
What is it?
物語を
Go back through the tale. No.
今の汝には真実のか弱き光を見逃さぬ目が与えられていると知れ
Know that you will be given them as long as you don't lose sight of the truth's faint light.
今こそ
Right now.
物語を
Through this tale.
推理可能とは信頼関係の先にあるものと知りたて
Know
ま
that
つり
for reasoning to be possible, a trusting relationship is required.
ああ
Yeah?
知ってるぜ
I know.
いや
Back.
今ようやく気づいたかもしれない
Maybe I finally noticed it just now. It's something repeated over and over again throughout the tale. Persistently so.
愛がなければ
That love,
真実は
the truth cannot be seen.
見えない
Ah, we're back to it. Welcome back to something that's been said like 5 times. Slowly, the tea room dissolved into darkness. And then, as though I was slowly sinking into a pitch-black sea, I passed through the crevice of the long journey I'd taken with Beato. I kept falling and falling. It was a bizarre experience, like crossing over the boundary of sleep while still conscious. Several tales before became faint bubbles, or were they small shining fragments? They were scattered like stars amidst a pitch-black sky. I kept sinking on and on into that sea. I'm not expected to read all that, am I? That was way too fast. The tales up till now, one after another, Virgilius guided Dante to Mount Purgatory and brought him to the feet of the eternal lady who waited at the top, Beatrice. Therefore, I like how they like drop their subtlety. They're just like, if it wasn't obvious, it's the Divine Comedy, Purgatorio. Just saying that. Therefore, the innermost depths lay not at the bottom, but at the peak of Mount Purgatory. The Eternal Lady had been waiting there for Dante the whole time. And then I knew. And then I knew. What did we know? I finally reached the truth. To the depths, nay. To the peak of Mount Purgatory. Idiot. You really are an idiot. You were declared incompetent. I don't think you've been declared in red an idiot, though. Hurts. If you read Divine Comedy, you can reach the truth just like Battler. But joke's on you, I only read Inferno, as the transition from Inferno to Purgatorio is incredibly boring. The point where it was just so much stuff to read about, I was like I tuned out and stopped reading because I realized I was actually bored. I've read part of Divine Comedy, just not the part that's relevant. But it's fine, because I was only there for Inferno anyway. He woke from the sleep of death, and bit by bit his sense of pain came back to him. On Battler's face, which still looked up at the heavens as he hung there pierced by the long sword, a suffering and alive expression gradually returned. You really are an idiot. Alright. A huge idiot. Battler noticed. The whole time, Beato had been snuggling up against him, sleeping. And when he held her, he knew it was not Beato, but her crumbling remains. It was not Beato, but her crumbling remains. Rip Beato. The Wind Battler just tried to hold that form as fragile as ash, and like a sandcastle made on a beach, washed away by a small wave, it fell apart and lost its form. At Battler's feet lay nothing but the ragged remnants of Beato's dress and a pile of ash. And on top of that pile of ash, he could see something sparkling gold. It was the husk of a single gold butterfly, which had been torn to bits. And so Battler knew, I've definitely reached the truth, but I wasn't able to do it while Beato still remained in this world. Beato. You really are. Idiot. Of course.
俺はようやく
I've finally
お前の出題したこのふざけた謎の真相に
reached the truth.
たどり着いたんだぞ
Crazy riddle you
お
created.
前の
Just like you wanted.
お望み通りにくじけずに
I didn't lose heart.
とうとう
And I finally
最後までたどり着いたのに
made it there in the end.
なのに
Why?
それを待てずに
Why did you lose heart?
くじけちまったんだ
Is that
よ
waiting for me? Good question.
お前はあんなにも信じてたんだろう
You believed so strongly, didn't you?
俺が絶対に
I'd reach the
真
truth.
実に至ってくれるなら
The what?
どうして
Why?
それを俺と一緒に信じて
Why couldn't you believe with me?
待てなかったんだよ
And wait.
永遠の拷問を強いていたのはお前じゃない
You aren't the one who's been forcing endless torture on someone else.
俺だ
It's
俺
me.
がお前に過酷な拷問を強いた
I've been the one putting you through such cruel torture.
そしてお前は最後まで抗い俺に訴え続
You
け
kept resisting until the very end and protested to me.
そして俺は
Even
よ
though
うやく祝いに
I've now
たどり
finally
着い
reached
た
that truth.
お前はもう
Think
待
you
ってなくて
couldn't wait any longer.
手遅れになっちまった
It's all too late.
バ
You-
バカ野
Oh,
郎どうしてお前が先に
why did she lose heart
くじけちまうんだよ
before me? That's my fault. I forced her to endure this torture. In fact, she's been doing a wonderful job sticking through it for so long. Over and over again, you kept on protesting to me. And because I was so incompetent, it was as though I couldn't understand the truth.
バカ野郎
Idiot. Crying battler. Battler's suffering amuses me. Almost as much as Beatrice's. Almost as much as Beatrice likes watching Battler suffer, I too like watching Battler suffer.
お前の謎はさ
Although apparently they're changing that to being Beatrice doesn't actually like watching Battler suffer and wants him to succeed. She's just roasting him. Idiot, your
ひね
riddles.
りすぎなんだよ
They're too
どうし
twisted.
てもっと
I couldn't
簡単に
say it.
言えねえん
Or
だよ
simply.
バカ野
Oh, he's crying again.
郎
Alright. His scream of pain filled the sad cathedral. The sad witch who wasn't able to communicate the truth to Battler. The sad man who wasn't able to understand the witch's truth. Battler's howl of anger and sadness rang out for that pair. The clock hung in the cathedral showed that it was midnight on October 5th, 1986. Time was up for everything. You're kidding me. Don't set something like a time limit on this difficult reel you're so proud of. No. I
そ
understand.
れほどのわずかな奇跡の中に
Even though there's a faint chance of that miracle happening.
お前は
You prayed for it to
Oh,
happen.
Mamo.
You're just like
じ
grandfather.
いさまと同じだったんだ
You prayed and bet on a power of a miracle. One so unlikely and totally impossible. Less likely than finding a bead you've dropped on a sandy beach. That means I've now truly arrived at the miracle. However, your time didn't last long enough. If I'd reached this point even a little sooner, if I could have seen the truth, even if it was right before time was up, I might have been able to save you. Right now, I've been run through pathetically. I can't even hold what remains of you. As I attempted to pull the longsword out, I tried stretching out my arms, kicking my feet, struggling to at least touch your remains, but nothing worked.
くそ
Well, blue truth your way out of the sword. He says shit, damn it, but like, at the time I noticed a golden glint on the palm of my hand. It was a single wing from a gold butterfly. That small fragment of gold was the only piece of Beato that I was permitted to touch. I cried with all my strength, gripped that fragment, and pressed it against my head, apologizing. Why couldn't I reach the truth earlier? Then I pressed it to my chest, promising even now I'd never again lose the truth. When I pressed my hand against my chest, the sword piercing my chest cut into my wrist and blood dribbled out. The blood spread through my fist, and it must have soaked that gold fragment with my red blood. Must have been the only way of telling her I found the truth she wanted me to know about. I clutched the wing of the gold butterfly with my freshly bleeding hand and pressed against the red sword that pierced me. At this point, Ushirimiya Battler knows and he understands he's found the tales, everything. At that time, it seemed as though a faint golden light leaked out of the gaps in his clenched fist. Just say you do believe in fairies, it works. The two witches had their backs turned. Erika was laughing at Battler's corpse.
本当に無様ですね、バト
It
ラ
really is
さん。
pathetic,
あなたの
Battler.
愚かさを石像にして永遠に。
I'll make your foolishness into a statue for all eternity. At that time, Battler's chest, no. The red longsword that pierced Battler began to sparkle gold from deep within his chest. The bright golden light began changing the sword's red color, turning it gold.
何事？
What's going on?
バトラが
Battler is...
これは
What?
何？
What's this? Battler coughed up blood and groaned. His consciousness came back. His will to live and fight came back. The red longsword that pierced him could no longer be described as such. By now it became a golden longsword. And then, slowly, gradually, it pulled itself out of Battler's chest. It finally pulled itself free and started dancing through the air, then stood up in front of Battler's eyes as though it knew who its master was. Battler, crawling on the floor and moaning, grabbed the golden longsword, and though it looked painful, he slowly rose to his feet once more. For someone who looks like they've been run through, your jacket looks
手の
great.
込んだ演出ね。
This sure is an elaborate act.
これラムダの隠し玉？
Is this one of your tricks, Lambda?
その輝きって
Glow.
まさか
Can't be. It can't be. Impossible. Lambda stared wide-eyed at the bright golden glow in awe. When she noticed Battler's resurrection wasn't part of a script, Lambda thought up. Burn also frowned slightly.
悪いわね。最新は却下よ。
Sorry, retrials will not be permitted.
シエスタ姉妹。その復活幻想を削除しなさい。
Siestra Sisters eliminate this resurrection illusion.
了解であります。
Understood.
45、410、発砲許可。
45, 410, firing permission granted.
それが
Unable to target.
IFF エラーコード999
I have a error code 999.
ヒュー
39だと。
999, you
バ
said?
カな。
Impossible. The Siestra Sisters hesitated, unable to carry out Burn Castell's orders.
ラムダ、これはどういう茶番よ。
Lambda, what farce is this?
完全に魔女幻想は打ち破られて、法廷は私の勝利
The
に終わった
illusion of the
は
witch
ず。
was destroyed, and the trial ended with our victory.
悪いわねベル。も
Sorry, Burn.
う少し付き合ってもらうわ。
Guess you have to stick around a bit longer.
そうでしょ、後ろ宮バトラ。
Isn't that right, Ushirimiya Battler?
あ
Yeah.
あ、待たせたな。エリカ、
Sorry to keep you waiting,
ベ
Erika.
ルン・カステル。
Burn Castell.
今度は俺の真実の番だぜ。
Now it's time for my truth.
再審請求を受理するわ。
Quest for a retrial accepted.
魔女集会の幻想法廷の閉廷は撤回される。
The Assembly of Wishes retracts the adjournment of the Court of Illusions.
異議提
Objection.
出。
Objection.
すでに裁判は決心し、判決は公示されている。
The trial has been concluded. The results are even announced.
異議却下。
Objection
いかなる
overruled.
判決も新たな真実の前にはかすむ。
All verdicts are overshadowed by new truths. We already knew this was possible. As they've consistently said that new truth overwrites old truth.
異議提出。
Objection.
バトラはプレイヤーを追放されただけでなく、魔女の地位を持たない。
Not only does Battler been banished as a player, he also doesn't hold the rank of witch.
上告する資格を持たない。
He isn't qualified to call for an appeal.
異議却下。
Objection overruled.
もうね、
He already has
あるのよ
that.
彼には 絶対の魔女ラムダデルタの名において認めるわ。
By the name of Lambda Delta, Witch of Certainty, I acknowledge it.
後ろ宮バトラ
Ushiromi
あなたを
Battler,
新たな黄金の魔女
I acknowledge you as the new Golden
いえ
Witch.
無限の魔術師後ろ宮バトラと認めるわ。
As the new Endless Sorcerer, Ushiromiya Battler. Can he not be the new witch? Ushiromiya Battler? Whatever.
なんですって
What did you say? That's right, Ushiromiya Battler is the new witch.
バトラ
Oh
が
god,
魔女の位
the
を
rank of a witch. Even worse, he's not a piece. Battler just became a witch, as we knew he would, in order to have some actual rights in this stupid game. There we go. Meta Battler's back. He's got the truth. He's going for a retrial, and hopefully he solves all things. But we're gonna have to find out how that goes next time.